can be 25th. And then you want to tell us it's 23rd. No. It's 23rd, 12th.
23rd.
That's a good one.
This brotherhood of the crazy.
How are you, Nduoko?
I am fine, thank you, Eric Latif. How are you?
I'm well.
Call me Ifoma.
Ifoma.
What is Ifoma? I
That's
only know
my middle
Ihoma.
name. There's Ifoma. There's Ifoma.
Ihoma was in The Lion and the Jewel.
Yes, she was.
Wale Shoinka.
But now I am
Ifoma.
Ifoma. Ifoma
Meaning?
means... Are you ready for this? Drum roll, please. A beautiful thing.
A thing of beauty.
So your name is Yokubundu. Is what? Life is good?
Truth is life.
Truth is life. A beautiful thing. Hey, surely.
All wrapped in one, baby. City. Qu'est-ce que c'est?
No,
Truth is life.
I'm just thinking of things.
A beautiful thing. What else now? What?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful sunshine. Oh, I mean, what?
Nothing more.
If you had to get a third name, what would it be?
Hey.
She already has a third name.
And all things considered.
Is me.
Notwithstanding.
Not with
I just remembered actually that I have a middle name when I was looking at some documents yesterday and saw that. Yeah. Like, oh, wait a
And
minute.
in true Kenyan fashion, when someone wants to insult you, with the due respect. Okay. Next thing coming out of that mouth, rest assured, it is
It's an insult.
no,
It's anything
kabisa.
but respect.
No, I really respect this person. But, he doesn't really think very clearly.
with tremendous respect.
Now that one, your head is going to be
idiot.
taken off. Kabisa.
With tremendous respect. I beg to disagree.
How are you, though?
I am fine. And you, City Muga,
Yes,
how are you, though?
though, I'm fine. Yes, I... Do you really think that as a Kenyan, I'm going to leave a sentence incomplete?
No. I am fine, though, yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Also.
Otherwise as well. Okay.
Also.
Well done.
Welcome to the show. Of course, the big news of the week is still CJ Maraga. The reaction from parliamentarians yesterday. They come together when when you're under attack, you come together. But then there were also, so the male MPs came together. The female MPs also came together. People like Millie Odhiambo, we spoke to her yesterday. What she was saying yesterday is the same thing that she was saying even in Parliament. And others were saying the same thing. Hey, this one, big. Opinion sharply divided, even legal scholars and legal minds. Oh, the president has an option. Oh, the president has no option. Oh, this Maraga misread the constitution. Oh, the Supreme Court was wrong. Oh, the Court of Appeal. What were they thinking? Hey, this one, we will discuss it again today. And also, today we want to focus on Mombasa for a little bit. There is the Urban Renewal Project. Is that what it's called, City?
It's called Urban Renewal Project. Yes, that's what it's called.
Urban Renewal Project. We've seen the Urban Renewal Project in Nairobi. Several estates in Nairobi have gotten not just a facelift. It's basically talking about putting up new housing projects in areas that we had
In
old
all cases, yes.
estates. We spoke with the housing PS a couple of weeks back, and he was telling us about these projects in Nairobi. Today, we will be talking about Mombasa. We know of two projects that are in the pipeline. One is the one for upgrading Buxton, and the other one is for Changamwe.
There's Changamwe and then there's Likoni.
And then there's
Actually,
another
it's
Likoni
much
as
larger
well.
than that. There's even a Hadija estate. Then there's Nyeri estate. The understanding was comprehensive, but the estates that we speak of are the ones which, for whom the process that is supposed to bring about the reality of this renewal has actually taken shape, and they're at the point where the developer is actually able to say that with certainty at a certain point in time, in the very near future, they can actually start the process. Yes, it involves a very lengthy process because one, you're not talking about your average tenancy, your average landlord and tenant relationship. No, these estates, as we call them, these old estates, whether in all the major towns, for the longest time, actually represented the rural homes of very many Kenyans. So some of the tenants who are in those houses inherited them. And some probably were born in those very, very estates.
And they're still there.
Yes. So essentially, those estates conform to what you may call an urban gishagi, an urban rural home.
Okay.
Because
This
if
is
you
their
talk about a
home.
tenant who's third generation, that's their home.
Yeah.
The environment, the ecosystem that exists there, it's the same environment and ecosystem that would exist in a rural setting where people have lived for generations. It is also true of these estates that the people who live there have actually lived there for generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is why the thinking behind it had to take this all these things into consideration, and also consider that when you're thinking of building, you're also thinking of moving these tenants. And in moving them, you actually have to follow not the usual rules of I give you notice, you leave. No. How do you ensure that even as they move, they also benefit from this particular project? And the benefit has to be with the end result, they ending up being given an opportunity to also own a house.
In the new
Something that has never happened before.
revamped estate.
Yes.
So we'll be speaking to the developer who's moving into the Buxton project.
Yes.
And this is Suleiman Shabal. We'll be speaking to him at 7 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we have to talk about education. So schools are reopening. Are they reopening on October 5th? Are they reopening on October 15th? When is it happening? But something that we touched on yesterday, private schools. There are very many private schools that are not going to be able to reopen simply because the business has collapsed. That as a business is out. So we'll talk to the Private Schools Association to hear what exactly is happening. But let's begin the show where we always begin. Coronavirus haijaisha Kenya, bado iko corona Kenya.
Okay. So 139 cases yesterday in Kenya after this was announced by the Ministry of Health. Now bringing Kenya's cases to 37,218. Unfortunately, now the death toll is at 659, with a few more cases yesterday. Total cases, rather, that have recovered, 24,147. So still continuing to recognize every day under 5%. And according to the World Health Organization, if you can bring this to under 5%, then you see yourself in decline when it comes to COVID-19. Yes?
The question that comes to my mind even as I hear you say this, so where does this second phase, the reinfection phase, the second pandemic, where does it feature in all this? Because if you reach that percentage, the magical under 5%, and then there's still talk of a re-emergence of the disease.
Second wave.
Yes.
Second wave. I mean, in the UK, for example.
Second wave is now, I guess, when you now head back. After you have hit that plateau, 5%, 5%, 4%, then you just go shoot back to 7%, 8%, 9%. It's like mafuriko imerudi tena. Ilikuwa imeisha, mvua ilikuwa imeisha, and then it rains again.
It begins again.
And the mafuriko comes back.
The problem with this particular rain is that you're not really sure whether it is going to be seasonal. The only thing that's seasonal is the flu that is directly related to the cold season. But this one, it is clear from everything that we keep reading and we're being told is that there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot more that is not known than is known.
True.
But it doesn't come out.
We heard Bojo yesterday talking about the unfortunate situation whereby they have to then go back into a state of semi-lockdown in the UK, rather in Great Britain, and going back to closing a lot of public establishments, seeing if children can continue with remote learning, and if you don't need to be out, don't be out, because they see a surge in their cases, though they're not giving the number of cases that are active and such. But for him to make the announcement that he did yesterday, it's clear that they're suffering from what you might then call the second wave, which many of them in Great Britain have said it is a second wave. This is what they are suffering from now. So going back into a state of lockdown in the UK after having opened things up just a month ago is what we see.
Could you then say that the opening up of the economy is what is responsible for the second wave?
It's possible. especially because of the movement that we see because of the summer break, you're likely to see that now that people will be back and are not traveling as they were during the summer months, then you might see then a decline.
So since we're talking science and we're talking research, then we could then assume that the thinking behind herd immunity can now be seen to work or not work, or at least it provides an opportunity to understand how it could work, or if it simply remains at a phase where you can refer to it as theoretical and not something that can actually work.
Yep, it is.
Okay.
31,777,771. How's that for a tongue twister? Cases in the world now. 975,470 deaths, inching closer to 1 million deaths around the world. Good news though, 23,394,844,000 of those cases have recovered. India, now, interestingly enough, is just 1.5 million shy of the United States. In less than a month, has 1.5 million cases of COVID. And we know that their populations vary, obviously. India has 4 times the number of, in terms of population that the United States does, but then almost the same in terms of coronavirus cases, is still rising quite significantly and almost at 100,000 deaths. So the numbers in India are spreading quite quickly. Brazil as well, hot on the heels of India with 4.5 million cases. Russia at 1.1 million cases. Colombia, Peru, Mexico, this is what we see, all in that range of 700,000 cases. Mexico still continues to record a high number of cases every day, and likely to continue this way for some time. Belgium, again, like we had seen last week, still continues to record high numbers, 105,000 now, where a couple of weeks they were under 100,000, and this is continuing to rise. Okay. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out in Uganda now that there's a partial opening, almost complete opening of things in the country. The borders are opened, international travel has resumed. Some children are going back to school, especially those in the final years of their levels. Sports resuming, sporting activities resuming, sporting establishments opening up. So let's see in the next couple of weeks what happens in Uganda. But in terms of loosening the reins, Museveni and his government have seen that they can do that now.
But imagine it sounds like a really reopened, but they are still tighter than we are.
It's essentially a long rope.
Yeah.
They're still tighter than we are. Sporting activity, yes, it's open, but only closed
in certain
doors.
Circumstances, and
Under
yes,
certain
it's limited.
circumstances, bars are still closed, markets still closed, livestock markets are still closed. There's still a lot that it's just partial opening.
You know, yesterday I happened to be somewhere in Parklands, somewhere near what they call Diamond Plaza. I saw something that I hadn't seen. I guess I haven't been in that area for a very long time, maybe a decade and more. But there is a shopping complex just before that. It was, I think, the precursor to the modern malls that we have. Now, on the grounds where normally there's parking, there's an open market, a fruit and vegetable market. And on the sides of the road, again, part of the market. I could count the number of people who were wearing masks. And I wasn't having difficulties counting because they didn't go beyond one hand. I stopped. People were going about their business as though COVID was something that happens in another country or it just never happened. Anyway.
A mask is a suggestion. When you see a police vehicle, you wear a mask.
Compliance.
Compliance.
And social distance is yet another suggestion.
Yeah. Those are just stories. 16 minutes after 6, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Let's look at what's happening in the skies this morning, and then we look at the headlines.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
All right, this Wednesday morning,
weather
it's
with
mostly cloudy in
Spice.
Nairobi at 14 degrees. A little bit of a chill this morning. It'll warm up though, highs of 26 and lows of 14. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 13 degrees, going to highs of 24 and lows of 12. Now for Nyeri, it's 13 and mostly cloudy, highs of 24 and lows of 13 with a chance of rains later on. Eldoret this morning is partly cloudy at 12. We'll go to highs of 21 and a suggestion of thunderstorms in the afternoon. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 20 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 19 with a chance of rains later. It's partly cloudy in Kakamega at 16 degrees. Thunderstorms are also in the forecast with highs of 25 and lows of 16. Mombasa is already experiencing light rain showers this morning. It'll graduate to thunderstorms later to highs of 27 and lows of 23. Malindi is also experiencing some showers this morning and will experience thunderstorms as well, going to highs of 27 and lows of 13. It's partly cloudy in Kampala and the skies will open up later into thunderstorms, going to highs of 24. And in Dar es Salaam this morning, it's partly cloudy at 24. We're going to expect some thick fog over the town, going to highs of 31 and lows of 23. Joburg is a bit chilly this morning at 8. It will go to highs of 24, however, with partly cloudy conditions. Clear skies in Lagos rule the morning. It will not last for long, though. Thunderstorms, heavy rains expected later with highs of 29 and lows of 24 as the rainy season continues. Beijing this morning is experiencing light rain showers at 18 degrees, likely to rain through, it's afternoon in Beijing, and it'll last through into the evening, highs of 19 and lows of 16. It's cloudy in London at 16 degrees, experiencing light rain showers as well, highs of 18 and lows of 9. And Paris is partly cloudy. It'll have some showers later on in the City of Love, going to highs of 23 and lows of 11. And finally in the Big Apple, it's still Tuesday night. Clear skies, however, and it'll rise to highs of 23 and lows of 16.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Good morning,
94
19 minutes after 6. Kenya's biggest conversation, also online on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Joseph Hightowers, good morning. Listening as usual from Kisumu. How are you? Lawrence Carrier, good morning. Laban Kaptel Tanui, watching live from Nandi County. Abu Mashar Isa. This is the number one program with mature conversations. Santisano from wherever you are. Ugo Oko, good morning. Listening in from Yangon. Ugo, so your sister here, what again was that middle name?
Ifoma Aska.
Ifoma.
You know, this is a
I
sort of
wonder she
name
just joined the news there.
that actually beckons you.
Informa.
Yes, exactly. But I was going to say it beckons you to compose a song.
What? Please sing for me, City. You know, you've been singing for other people since.
Ifoma.
See? Ifoma. Right.
You're such a good student, Eric.
All right, so let's begin with today's proverb.
You know, this leaning that African proverbs have on making the subject of the very proverb male, I now begin to understand why it is so. One probably heard some of these things from their wives or their women. In those days, there was nothing like partner. It was either wife or daughter. And this is a sort of conversation daughters didn't really have with their fathers, but wives. And why I say this is because of the proverb for today. It makes me understand why it was the case. And sometimes it wasn't men sharing it. It's probably the wife or the wives, one of the wives, came up with this just so that the person could get the point. The day a mosquito lands on your testicles is the day you will know there is a better way of resolving issues without violence.
So you think this came from a wife?
I gave it the freedom of options.
Hey.
Let me repeat it. The day a mosquito lands on your testicles is the day you will know that there is a better way of resolving issues without violence. It is a Senegalese saying.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's look at the headlines.
Okay. Can Uhuru save the day?
Who knows?
Why does he need to save the day?
That's the question.
Which day needs saving?
Okay, well, let's see. It's on the front page of The Nation today. And on the Standard, it's restless. 416 MPs. Under siege is what the Standard says. Jittery legislators fight back and trade blame on the floor of the House over Maraga's advice to send them home over the gender rule. Furious parliamentary leadership faults advisory and attacks the Chief Justice. Speaker Muturi-led PSC resolves to move to court to block dissolution. Okay, so...
Move to what?
Court.
Well, it's clear that our legislators have a sense of humor. Was it not the court, the highest court in the land, or the president of this court?
So bring it home, shall we? Let's land this plane.
So they want to challenge basically the Chief Justice's actions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
That should be fun. So, top political leaders are united in silence in the wake of an advisory by Chief Justice David Maraga that President Uhuru Kenyatta dissolves Parliament. Despite the CJ's monumental advice on what it portends for the country, the President, his Deputy William Ruto, and ODM leader Raila Odinga maintained an uncharacteristic silence on whether Parliament should be dissolved. The three leaders are key players in the country's political, social, and economic spheres based on the significant support they hold in the National Assembly and the Senate. But unlike in other momentous legal or political decisions made by the courts, they ducked yesterday. This is what the Standard says. Leaving MPs to fry in their own fat.
That's a bit sensational. So it was just yesterday.
Leaving MPs to fry in their own fat.
Well, we've seen them react much sooner before.
Sometimes they've even reacted before the event.
Yeah, sometimes
It says,
they preempt it.
when Maraga nullified the 2017 presidential election, a furious Kenyatta took to a busy city market to dismiss the Supreme Court's decision and threatened the judiciary. On the other hand, Raila hailed the decision as historic. In 2013, while Uhuru celebrated the Supreme Court decision that upheld his victory, Raila openly complained. And yesterday, Uhuru was in Mombasa, where he unveiled measures to boost the fisheries sector, while the DP was meeting leaders of people living with disabilities.
And visiting Jubilee House.
Okay, so according to Musalia Mudavadi, leader of the ANC, dissolution of parliament is not an end in itself. Without mitigation, Kenya will be in free fall, with the very survival of the state in utter jeopardy.
How?
How?
That is, you know, if you actually take a look at the papers and you read the various comments, you know, as young children, we were told about the emperor's clothes. There's a story. It has lasted and become a generational epic. I'm using the word epic deliberately here. The emperor walking naked. Our leaders are actually undressing right before our very eyes and showing us their worst possible sides. Just listen to the reactions.
Across board, I mean.
Yes. Of all the reactions, you would hear those who support it and who are part of what we call our parliament are a minority. The rest are coming out guns blazing, mouths breathing fire, smoke coming out of their ears. But the one which I find almost comical is one says, they should have given us more time. Time.
They wanted more time.
Listen to what Chris Wamalwa said. When we were pushing for this, the women leaders here went to New York to gain allowance and denied us the vote. According to Amos Kimunya, where is the greater public interest being served? Where is the greater public interest being served here? Collectively, there are 4,000 members of staff who are not sure if they're going home or not. There's a lot of anxiety. Millie Odhiambo, who we spoke to yesterday, says the CJ has made his decision. And
where are these 4,000 members of staff? I don't
around
understand.
Parliament, and
Each MP
has their
10.
own. So
Has 10 members of staff. So once this MP goes home,
everybody else.
then the constituency office also is
jobless.
My point exactly. Did they not think of this before?
Apparently not. Amos Kimunya now has brought it to
They
light.
didn't see this coming. I mean, you know, there was still
Why
time.
actually, maybe the question is, why should they have seen it coming? After all, they're used to having their way and doing exactly what they like.
There was still time.
So there needed to be some ruffling to get people to sit up.
This isn't ruffling, my dear. This is stark naked reality.
Shaking.
They were doing something about it. I mean, what is it?
Chris Romano said they wanted to do something about it. Of
course
but then
they
the
did.
women went to New York.
Of course they did.
A friend of mine once gifted his wife. It was a mug.
Mug. Kikombe.
Kikombe.
Ile ya mug.
And it was ile ya mug. Ile kubwa ile. And it was
Just
written...
differentiation.
It was written... so the mug was written, you asked me to repair the leaking pipe. The leaking... Yeah, it was a leaking pipe, not tap. You asked me to repair the leaking pipe.
Yes.
And I said, I'll do it. You don't need to remind me every 6 months.
Your friend is clearly a poet.
You asked me to repair it. I said, I'll do it. So just wait. You don't need to remind me every 6 months.
Whether you
This
wait all your
is
lifetime, just
exactly
wait.
what these MPs are doing.
We'll get to it, but don't tell us every 3 years.
You don't have to keep reminding us
Every
every
3
10
years,
every
telling
10
us.
years.
Actually, do you see what it is that actually entails? You are not significant enough to actually talk to me and tell me what I should do. Yet you voted for me, and without you, I wouldn't
be
have
here.
this job. But that having been said, please stop telling me what to do.
I know what I'm supposed to do.
I know what I'm doing. Yes, I understand there are very many pending projects that have not been completed. Yes, I understand what I promised and haven't delivered, but stop telling me what
tell
I'm
me again.
supposed to do.
Junaid Mohammed said, interestingly enough, we can't be under siege. I have seen people saying we go home. Go home where? We are going nowhere. Our term ends in August 2022.
I wouldn't take that at face value. You see, there's some of these reactions are the sort of reactions you have when you do not know what else to say. And you're actually afraid.
A wounded animal strikes.
Yes, because this one, I've heard of many things that are being said from the legal perspective, what lawyers are saying, what the possible outcomes could be. But personally, the reactions are, if I may again use the word, personal. Because, think, mimi ni mheshimiwa. How many loans do you think these people have at any given moment in time?
You can't just send them home like that.
Precisely. No, sorry. I spoke out of turn.
And
How many obligations?
Yeah, exactly.
Do they have?
Yes.
How much money do you even have to mount a campaign?
Now? No.
Surely.
No.
You can't just ambush me like that. Tell me go and mount
That
a
is a
campaign.
good
You can't
implication.
ambush me and tell me I should have been doing my job. Come
No.
on. How can you tell me I should have been doing my job all this time?
First of all, we
For
have
goodness
some.
sake, I had other things I was doing.
There are some serious bills that need to be passed.
I mean.
Okay? And we know how these things go. We haven't even passed those bills.
I mean,
How do you think I'm going to build a war chest so that I can mount if I'm a senator, I can mount.
for governor.
Yes. How?
How do
We
you
know
expect
that
me to do
26 governors have to leave.
Yeah. And here you are telling me to do the work that you've put me there to do? No, I can't. I have to prepare for the next term.
And
What's wrong
secondly,
with you people?
between now and 2022, man, there are very many other problems the nation has, and these nations require procurement.
Because right now we are fighting a pandemic. We don't
Yes.
even have money.
And the pandemic is not going to come to an end tomorrow. Okay, we understand that we've begun building this bypass, which is going to come out in Westlands. But the other bypasses we need to build.
Other things you need to finish. So, okay, people are making noise about things. Want me to? Now you're telling me to do my job.
What is wrong with Maraga?
Why?
Surely.
The interesting bit was what the drafters of the Constitution have said about this. All right. So one of them is in Parliament. And this is the MP Otiende Amolo, MP for Rarieda.
Rarieda.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he came out and he was going all hammer and tongs and saying, look, this was ill-advised of the Chief Justice. This is not the route you should have taken. This was wrong. Someone like the person who was the vice chair of the Committee of Experts, Atsango Chesoni, so she said, look, this is a poisoned chalice that they basically created themselves. When we came up with a harmonized draft constitution as a committee of experts, our proposal on how to achieve this was through proportional representation
Yep.
as a system of election. They went to Naivasha,
Changed.
they changed this. Now, they created an extra 80 constituencies from 210 to 290.
290.
And this is what has come out of it. Now they have absolutely no way of coming up with a proper legislation that can really address this issue effectively. They brought it onto themselves.
They mutilated what had been presented to them.
Yeah.
So essentially, this is a meal they cooked.
Political expediency then is now basically just coming to bite them in the back.
I think it's interesting to look at the fact that, we've been having this conversation. This conversation should have been completed, done. It started in 2010. Just a quick timeline with the Standard has done. August 27th, promulgation of the Constitution creates two-thirds gender rule. That's in 2010. In 2012, Supreme Court orders two-thirds gender rule to be implemented during elections in March 2013, failure to which it would be implemented by August 2015. 2015 comes round and Justice Ngugi orders Parliament to enact the gender rule legislation within 40 days. Did it happen? No. August 25th, MPs give themselves a grace period of 1 year to August 27th, 2016 to enact the gender rule. Did it happen? No. April 16th, government bill that requires party nomination lists to ensure their parliament membership meets the gender rule to pass. A second vote a week later fails over lack of quorum. September, same year, the Attorney General warns Parliament it could be declared illegitimate if it fails to meet the gender rule after the August 27th general election. That came and went out the window. April 2017. Let's go to February 2017. Nominated Senator Judith Sijeni sponsors a bill seeking to enforce the gender rule, but it flops when only 45 members vote for it against a required minimum of 233. March 2017. Justice John Mativo grants Parliament 60 days to pass the gender rule and allows any Kenyan to file a petition to the CJ for Parliament to be dissolved if it fails to adhere to the Constitution. That went. Justice Chacha Mwita in April 2017 directs the IEBC to ensure political parties' lists of nominees are in line with the gender rule. He cautions the failure to follow the order would mean the 12th Parliament could be dissolved as it is illegally constituted. Nin happen. Justice Philip Waki, retired, Gatembu Cairo and Katharima Mnoti dismiss an appeal by the National Assembly and Senate speakers who claimed they have no role in enacting the gender rule. Margaret Twoili files a petition to dissolve Parliament. 6 other petitions follow. That was in April 2019. And here we are today, where Chief Justice David Maraga advises the President to dissolve Parliament for failing to enact the rule. Did they have time over the last 10 years?
Not enough.
Not enough. Do you know?
They were doing something about it. How many
and
bills
they
have
were
been brought to
thinking
Parliament?
about it, and they were going to do something about it.
There are options. And they still talk about there being options. Even now, there's one that the president should allow them to consider, that is before the Senate. Nonsense.
Okay.
26 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at the traffic. And then we'll be back. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi. Traffic.
This Wednesday morning, not much traffic that will get you stuck at the moment. We know that we've not officially entered into traffic hour just yet. coming off on Mombasa Road and getting into the CBD won't be too painful right now. Uhuru Highway is likely to clog up between here and Westlands, here being Nyayo Stadium roundabout. And we're going to have some issues in industrial area because of the road closure. But things look pretty good. It's flowing well in all directions, and we'll see how it looks in about half hour or so. But for now, if you left early, you should be fine. And if you do get clogged up somewhere, do let us know. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. But like I said, it looks good now. Now it's time to go if you haven't.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Hello guys, listening in from Kisi on Spice FMKE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Polycarp Ngoje. And this is one from Kisi. No, that's Pauline Mogaka. Polycarp Ngoje. City Muga, where do you buy your shirts, man? I love them.
That is one of our...
that's Polycarp.
One of our colleagues? Well, the gentleman clearly has good taste.
Good Lord.
Well...
Akuana Kando.
Apana,
You want to know where I buy my shirts? Talk to me nicely.
Apana, si lazima. No. I will let him know. See, we have his contact. I will communicate to him.
Don't hold your breath. Polycarp. When someone tells you, "Nitakwambia."
Leo.
You wait.
Today. No. Not this, we will do
See,
it.
I have your number.
Today.
See, I have your number.
Today.
I'll talk to you, man.
Tell us. It's on Twitter, isn't it?
Forget that
See, I have his
story.
number on Twitter.
Forget that story.
Water,
Johnston Wambesha is in Mwingi, perfectly tuned in. And Heron Stackers says, tuning in from Migori. All right. Welcome, everybody, wherever you are tuned in. 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi 97.7. Other headlines?
So, on the back page of The Nation today, CBK loses grip on the Kenya shilling. Before taking stock of the performance of the demonetization, Dr. Patrick Njoroge stood beside a packed conference room. Away from the glare of cameras, he talked about the fact that nothing has been more delicate than the former... For him, rather than the Kenya shilling now having a small change in terms of value effects. A few months into office, Dr. Njoroge has clamped down on currency dealers from commenting about the currency. He then went he then went after analysts who spoke to the media and reined in international media that extensively reported about the currency. He's been able to keep the currency steady despite growing concerns that Kenya had moved quietly into a currency control regime. But the bubble appears to be bursting as the CBK struggles to keep the currency from losing ground against the dollar. Bank executives, who only agreed to speak on condition of anonymity, said the CBK has adopted strong-arm tactics against the undeniable forces of demand and supply, a ticking time bomb that will either implode or transform into a dollar black market if it has not already done so. Right now, we are at 108.5 on the interbank. If they opened and allow everyone to do what they have to do, it will run to 112 because of panic. So you're going to have a lot more people buying the dollar, right? So that they would be able to trade and then make more on the shilling. So, a spot check, according to The Nation, revealed that 10 commercial banks had crossed the 113 mark for every dollar sold and were headed towards 115, but are not reporting the same, as the acceptable mark is 108. None of the commercial banks was willing to sell the dollar yesterday at less than 111 on average. Kenya imports 3 times more than its export. The country has also accumulated enormous foreign debt, which is repaid by buying dollars. Of course, COVID has made things worse. There's also been less investment from hedge funds that invest in bonds or in the stock market. So it seems that the CBK and the currency would be in a little bit of a pickle.
They would, but that stock market issue is not really complete because Headlines, front page of the Business Daily. We're told investors in the Nairobi Stock Exchange have gained 123.4 billion. Forget the percent.
Percent. What?
Okay. Over the past month, they've increased. And they say this is because of the demand for Safaricom and bank shares by high net worth individuals that have cut the coronavirus-driven losses down. Okay. So
two counters have really rallied
yes,
the gains.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Safaricom is easy to understand even for a layman because given the lockdown, given restrictions, and given the need that people have to communicate, Safaricom was going to. Yes. And remember, some of the platforms on which Safaricom does their bank business is with banks. So what that means, therefore, that even the banks benefit directly from what the communication aspect of Safaricom does, and the benefits that accrue from them also trickle down to the banks from a purely layman's perspective. So the headline there was NAC defies virus to gain 123 billion in the past month. That's the month.
All right.
Let's
Just
wait
a
and
month.
see what the following month will herald. But since we are on this matter of the Business Daily, COVID centers in schools to be shut ahead of reopening. Remember, we used the schools that we have, especially, specifically the boarding schools in our country, to function as centers for COVID. Well, not for COVID, quarantine.
Quarantine and isolation.
Yes. Did I say for COVID? Goodness, the things I say sometimes. Okay. The Ministry of Education wants isolation and quarantine centers in schools shut ahead of reopening. Yes. They have mentioned the schools, but there is no indication. They're just saying that the request has been from schools that all these places be fumigated, but nothing has so far been heard from the ministry as to what they have in store or the plans they have to ensure that, again, these will be safe environments for the students to go back to.
Okay. Now, officials abroad, people who are working in Kenya's missions abroad, are on the spot because of operating illegal bank accounts. This is according to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is investigating some 191 public officers in foreign missions because, according to the Leadership and Integrity Act, which the officers, there's an offense under Section 19.6 Leadership and Integrity Act. When you are deployed abroad, if you want to operate as a public officer, if you want to operate a foreign bank account, you must notify the government. And it's like a way of seeking approval.
Wait, let's start again. And you must seek approval if you are an officer serving abroad. You must seek approval.
Even in Kenya.
To open a bank account.
To operate a foreign bank account.
Only if you are in that cadre. Okay, carry on.
All right. Now, these guys who are serving in these foreign missions, some of them, they sought the approval and all, and they've been operating those accounts legally. However, you're supposed to, every year, furnish the EACC with annual bank statements. A number of them have not been doing that. So, red flag. Then there are those that are operating some illegal bank accounts. So yes, you came and told us that you're running this bank account with this particular bank. And then we find out that you also have another bank account on the side with another bank that you've not told us about.
If you work abroad, it means you live abroad.
Yep.
And if you need money to conduct your affairs, what then are we saying that you should conduct your affairs with the bank that you have in Kenya?
No. It's okay for you to operate that bank. It's okay for a public officer to operate a bank account abroad. The only thing is that there has to be transparency. You've got to declare, I have this bank account. Okay?
That makes sense.
I have this and this and this bank account, and then every year furnish the
But there's a reason behind this,
government.
isn't there?
Of course.
And what do you think the reason is?
Because of what we've seen before.
The bank's accounts are used for nefarious activities.
Unfortunately.
Stashing money in foreign accounts.
Okay. It seems to be a popular way of stashing money.
Oh, yes, it's a big one.
But why do they have to go to the Western countries? We have many African countries that also have bank accounts.
Well, if you're working in China, for example, you'll operate a bank account in China.
Okay.
It's still abroad. Okay.
A speculation continues for the opening of schools. According to this report in The Nation, KCPE and KCSE candidates will lead phased reopening. The October reopening of schools will be in phases, ending 6 months of closure occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. In his final proposal to Cabinet Secretary George Makoha on Monday, the Education Response Committee on COVID-19 said learners should be in school between 5th and 19th October. Standard 8 and Form 4 learners will be the first to report, since the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education and Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examinations take place in April 2021. In the first group are also Standard 7 pupils, Form 3 students and Grade 4 learners. After a week or two, the rest of the learners, pre-primary 1 and 2 and Grade 1, 2 and 3, Standard 5 and 6 and Form 1 and 2 will resume studies. This is all according to the report or the recommendation that was given to the ministry. The announcement will be made next week in terms of what is going to happen after the deliberations are finished. Now, this is all what they had said. But, I mean, the new second term is expected to end on the 18th of December, and they will break for 2 weeks before going back to school for third term in January 2025. So, these are the recommendations that have been given, and the talk of repeating an entire year, then it doesn't happen, because there's also recommendation for the school year then to begin in June as opposed to January as it had been previously. So these are all recommendations. These are all reports that were handed over to the ministry. We're going to wait and hear what the ministry is going to say then in terms of when this will open.
Let them finally tell us something.
Something concrete would be nice. But still, of course, is the overwhelming hue and cry from a lot on this side, parents specifically, who are just saying, you know what, we psychologically we were prepared for something else, and now we're being basically thrown into the deep end, and we don't know if we're going to be able to swim this one.
You know, October is next month, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
October is next month.
And actually, you're expecting someone to plan, because children going back to school is not just...
It's not just wake up and go.
No. These children have grown.
Yeah.
They're not the same size they were before. No, sincerely. All these months of staying at home, they've grown. So you're talking uniform. Uniform includes shoes and socks or stockings, whatever it is that they use.
Yeah. There are lots. Look, the truth of the matter is that there are lots of parents who are not prepared.
Then you're talking
because
about...
they had set their mind for January.
Yes, then you're talking transporting children, because unless the school is next door to your house, very few schools are.
And this is against the backdrop of the fact that people just don't have the money. People don't have the money.
That actually is the reality, the prevailing, the continuously prevailing reality.
The big reality is that. But I always keep going back into looking at what, and we have reported this many times, what kind of pressure the Ministry of Education has endured over the last 6 to 7 months, with very many people asking, so when are children going back to school? Open schools, we need them to get out of here. And then now you're told, all right. When the government said January, so we are going to lose a whole year. Munatakanga nini?
I think even with that outcry, after some time, people just realized, okay, well, here we are at home, and this is the way this is going to be.
Do you hear all the complaints that you hear about the Ministry of Health? The one that you hear, and which again is a bit, today is a day in my mind for comedy. Why do they keep telling us these reports? Now, surely, is that a complaint? These are people informing you, okay? Now, unfortunately, the Ministry of Education cannot be accused of continuously informing. In fact, they can be accused of the complete opposite. Now, given the burden that this ministry has, again, I'm going to be prescriptive. Had they taken the Ministry of Health route and stopped this firefighting, because their reaction seems to be firefighting. Half the time, there's this fire, put it off. There's this fire, put it off. And they were informing people and constantly
telling people what's going on.
It would have been better if our complaint was, why does the Ministry of Education feel they need to talk to us all the time?
They're telling us too much.
That would have been something that would have been not only palatable, but it would have been good, because you can then go back to the things they have been telling you. That hasn't happened. What has happened consistently is the inconsistency and the flapping that the ministry has had. You're never really sure.
Nobody's really clear
No, you're not.
of
No,
what
you're not.
exactly is going
In
on.
fact, you're wondering when they say October, might they change?
Yeah, might they even change it? So will it be candidate? So I mean, okay.
And
so,
then now, there's the matter of money-related issues. We've mentioned uniform, fees. So what are they going to consider? But more significantly, since I'm talking about public schools here, okay, does the government have the money? No. Does the government have the money to
finance schools?
Yes,
education
because
this
that's
quarter?
they're supposed to. Do they have the money?
Yeah, but you keep telling us the government has money.
Oh, no. They are having money and having money for certain functions, two different things. Money they have.
For this particular function, they'll have money.
This
Release
one,
money, let it go to school. So what's required? Buy food, buy this and the other. There will
after
be
they've
money.
given the counties money or before they've given the counties
There will
money,
be
or
money.
Okay.
which one?
There will
Money.
be money.
By the way, that particular
Just like this
position,
one of desks. There's money.
that position, I don't move from that position. They have money. That one I don't even budge, not even an inch. Okay? Everything else that the government tells me about money and what have you, you said nonsense. Flap doodle. Same thing.
Sitting now, you're just making this stuff up.
Flap doodle is a word. It's a synonym for nonsense.
Flop
I
doodle.
love it.
Hey.
Ooh, gonna use that today.
Use that somewhere, right? The DPP has lined up, there's this case against Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa of the allegation is over the misuse of CDF money. 20 million shillings graft case. The DPP has lined up how many witnesses? Just count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, get to 100, get past 110. 117 witnesses against MP Aisha Jumwa and a co-accused over the 20 million shillings graft case, and also 43 documents. The defense has already acknowledged that they have received the statements from these 117 witnesses. They have also received these 43 documents in relation to this. So far, they have denied 10 charges facing them before a magistrate in Mombasa. 117 witnesses. Yep. While we're still in Mombasa, there are some officers of the Kenya Bureau of Standards who have been taken to court and charged with stealing 26 million shillings. 26 million shillings stolen. This is a regional accountant, regional assistant accountant, regional manager, a quality assurance manager, and a principal accountant. They are based in Nairobi, and they were charged with the theft of 26.3 million shillings. This person called not Rose Nyakemo, Martin Mswanya Nyakemo faces another case in the Milimani Law Courts where he posted a bond of 15 million shillings, and another gentleman is also facing another case in Kisumu.
Let me ask this question. When you post a bond for 15 million shillings, what does that mean? You go and get 15 million shillings cash and then you deposit it, or you give a bank how do you do this?
Bond is like a surety. It's not cash. Bail is the cash.
Bail is cash.
Bond is now you go and bring in a title and deposit it with the court.
Okay.
And the land is valued at 15 million shillings.
So you bring it to the valuation. Okay.
It stays there.
So essentially, you are better off being granted a bond.
Yes.
Than
And then
being
a
told bail.
Bail.
Well,
And then
now
sometimes
you
you're
have to
told
go-
bond and surety,
and
of
surety
the same
of the
amount.
same.
So the bond is your material, and then surety is city's land.
Okay.
So in case of anything, your shamba yako city.
City will
goes.
stand for you. Yeah,
Good. See, I live and learn.
you do.
One of the things that perhaps has escaped our attention with all these exciting things happening are the areas of this country that have been affected by the vagaries of climate. I'm thinking of Baringo and the problems of flooding and what this has brought about. Well, should we say it has just increased their their trials and tribulations? And from what I see, there isn't really much that has been done or hasn't been reported as to how it is their county government and the national government, what they've been doing to alleviate the problem that these people must be facing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because amidst all these problems, you can have a lot of water, a lot of flooding, but it doesn't mean that water is safe for you to drink.
To drink,
Now,
exactly.
one of the things about the Baringo area is it's known to have snakes. Many snakes. Many variety of snakes. Yes. Not the pet variety.
The poisonous
The
variety.
poisonous
the really
variety.
poisonous ones, yes.
Okay.
So when you have someone moving out from an establishment that they're accustomed to a new place, essentially you enter the environment of these wild creatures.
Yes.
It's something Baringo is my point of focus, but we are opening schools. We have not been told, and we don't know what has been done about Pokot. We have not been told about what has happened in the Budalangi, in the areas around the Lake Victoria and the areas of the people who are affected there. We also haven't been told about the many, many schools that did not meet the master of safety in terms of the buildings that they had. What has been done? We've asked this question and asked and asked and asked, and we're asking again, what has been done? Because if you're going to open up learning, and you are saying that you want candidates, if you are a candidate and you come from these areas, how on earth are you actually even going to be able to go to school? Which school?
Which school?
If that school is submerged. And if this has caused a situation where you can't even get food on a daily basis, you do need food if you're going to even walk to school, because it isn't as though these places are awash with public transport.
No.
Even if there is public transport, how are you going to afford this? These are things that must be discussed, because when you talk about areas that are far-flung, and they're being far-flung automatically means that they are marginalized and that they're incapacitated. What has been done to ensure that these people's lives and livelihood being restored, lives are being looked into? This issue of education that we're talking about, is it going to be across board? Is it going to be a uniform playing field for
Everyone.
every Kenyan who is in Standard 8 and who is in Form 4? Because this is something that the Ministry of Health has to tell us.
It is.
They have to tell us. Opening it, very good. But will every Kenyan child benefit?
Benefit from it.
Practically, not just on paper. Because I'm sure if you asked, you'll hear it on paper. Remember when we spoke to the education PS, Dr. Belio Kipsang, he mentioned some of these areas. And in fact, he said that he was going to visit these places to find out what's happening, to follow up that the work is actually being done properly. He was really speaking very highly of the kind of work that is happening in the background to ensure that once schools reopen, as many as students as possible are going to be able to resume learning. Now, practically, again, this is the one thing, and remember I kept telling him, on plan, very good. Practically, some of these things, that's where the questions emerge in the implementation phase of it. Someone may report to the Ministry of Education that they've done something, and yet they haven't.
But we've seen that before, haven't we?
We have,
Yes.
not just in education, but in very many other
Yes,
things.
exactly.
Yes, we have.
Yep. Coming to the top of the hour, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. The Situation Room will be live on KTN Home shortly as well, and www.spicefm.co.ke, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, in the next hour, we cross over to Mombasa and talk about the Buxton project. And this is the Buxton Affordable Housing Project. Going to have the transformation of this estate into building of new apartments. We'll be talking about that shortly. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
All right, what are we looking at on the roads at this moment? Not too bad coming off Mombasa Road. It's the normal morning traffic that we would expect. You're going to get to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. You won't be able to get there so easily, though. On Mombasa Road, further up at Signature Mall, unfortunately, a trailer inbound has stalled and it's clogging up very fast. This has affected traffic all the way until the JKIA turn off. So it's not looking very exciting right about now, unfortunately, on Mombasa Road. It is another day, and this is what we expect with the traffic that we see. So if you're approaching that area, understand the truck has stalled, and as you're moving forward, you're going to do so very, very slowly. Uhuru Highway then towards Westlands is also moving quite slowly as well. It's bumper to bumper. Coming off of Thika Road, you will get past Kiambu, road with a little bit of trouble. It's jam-packed, and then joining with the superhighway, you're going to get to the Pangani underpass and then get stuck yet again as you try to get into the CBD. So it's already a crazy Wednesday morning. We're going to look at about half an hour and see how that may have changed. But for now, you're going to need some patience to get through. We'll give you more details as we go along. Not to forget, you can also let us know what you see. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know where you might be stuck or if you find an alternate route.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
2 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for choosing Spice FM this morning. 94.4 in Nairobi. In Mombasa, we are on 87.9. Kisumu, 102.5. 96.0 in Nakuru. 96.7 in Eldoret. 90.9 in Nyeri. Malindi, 97.7. And www.spicefm.co.ke. YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, as well as Spice FM KE. For the next 2 hours, we are also live on KTN Home. A very good morning to your audience on KTN Home. Let's start with today's proverb. CT.
Well, Eric. The day a mosquito lands on your testicles is the day you will know that there is a better way of resolving issues without violence. This is a Senegalese saying.
That's the day.
That's the
First
day
with the options.
Yes.
Looking at all the options before you.
Yes.
That's the day you'll realize that.
Do you wave the mosquito away? Do you slap it?
Do you have dialogue? Mosquito.
With the mosquito?
Or do you get a hammer? This is a big one. This is a big one. So let's talk about the Buxton project, CT. Buxton is one of the very many other urban renewal projects.
Yes, it is.
And this has happened already in Nairobi. We've seen a couple of projects. Pangani is
and
already
Jivanji Bachelors.
Already up and running.
And not only up and running, but the president actually officiated the groundbreaking ceremonies of both estates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But the understanding and the thinking behind the urban renewal project was that old, mostly dilapidated estates that previously were owned by the councils, the municipalities, now currently under the stewardship of the counties, would actually be built anew. Now, this was a unique project in that it was what you call I'm never sure whether it's the public or the private that comes first, but public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm. Private.
Yes, and
Public-private.
Public-private. Public comes first, yes, because it's the public who own the land.
Yep.
Yeah.
It involved the national government underwriting it. Mm-hmm. Yes, the land is within the county. Yes, it is county land, but the national government. And this just didn't involve the ministry that deals with lands and housing, but it also involved even the Ministry of Finance. For all this to take place so that you can have an understanding that can be documented that takes care of the interest of the developer, the interest of the county, and more importantly, the interest of the tenants. Mm-hmm. And why the tenants? Because when you talk about tenants in a housing scheme of this nature, you're talking about people who aren't your ordinary tenant. So even the relationship that we speak of that a tenant has with the landlord is not ordinary. These are houses whose ownerships, occupation, really not ownership, one could say is generational. Mm-hmm. So just like people talk about rural areas, some of these urban dwellings represent what you may call the rural dwelling. Here, I'm actually taking the liberty of the language within an urban setting. So there are people who were born there. the ecosystem within these estates are the same ecosystem you'd find in what we refer to as a village. People who've known each other for years, they know their parents, some even know their grandparents. So the social element of the housing had to come in, and the consideration, not just the aspect of rebuilding, but also ensuring that those who live there benefit from it by ending up owning the property.
Yep.
Yes, at least a property that is not just equivalent, better than what they lived in before. This, in a nutshell, was the thinking behind it.
And another big thing about it is that you're looking at vast pieces of land
Yes.
in these areas, and you're looking at the demand for housing.
Yes.
And you're seeing that you have this piece of land and you need to meet demand.
Yes.
So instead of thinking of, going to put up new houses in Kapiti Plains, for example, in the case of Nairobi, look at these same old estates. How can we rejig these estates, put up new houses, so you still have the same community that was living there, still living there, and then more people can come and occupy the areas?
Actually, when you think of what we refer to as urban drift, where people actually move to urban areas to seek better livelihood, if there's one place where people have problems of housing, it's in the urban areas. So this is something the government recognized, but the government also recognized at that point in time, to actually achieve this, they didn't have the wherewithal to. And that's where now the private participation comes in.
Yeah.
That's where the private developers come in to assist with this. And then, of course, when the plan for the 4 major, huge agendas came in and was brought in by the president, it fell right into the ambit of this plan. The truth of the matter is, when you think about it, it is a grand plan. And it is one of these things that occur very once in a lifetime, because in the past, the government, through the National Housing, used to put up houses of this nature, and you find them all over the country in some of the major towns. But the option of ownership on this scale is something that is new.
It's new.
Yes, and it's the people who are involved, the private investors, are actually charting a completely new path that had hitherto not been charted. Yes. And so, because it is new, it will come with issues that had never been dealt with before.
So we'll be dealing with issues as they emerge.
Yes, but even more interestingly, if you are a developer right now and you're talking about a county, you'll not just be inheriting the land, but you'll be inheriting the problems that the tenants have had with their previous landlord, the
Yes,
municipality.
The municipality.
Oh yes, you will, and it'll be often the center stage of the discussions.
Let's focus our conversation today to Mombasa. And Mombasa, in the urban renewal project, we have a number of housing estates that are earmarked for this facelift and uplifting. Buxton is one of them. The other estates include Khadija Estate, Miritini, Greenfield Changamwe Estate, Chuda, Mzizima, Likoni Estates, that's Likoni Flats and Likoni Customs, Nyerere Estate, Tomboya Estate, Kachonjo, and Kizingo.
Yes.
Redevelopment of these estates is expected to bring in more than 50 billion shillings worth of investments. This is according to the plans by the county government and the national government as well. The one that there were 2 that now have got into the stage of getting the PPE signed in and the takeoff.
Yes.
Buxton is one of them, and Changamwe is the second.
And also Likoni.
And Likoni as well, right?
They're more or less at the phase where they can actually start. But Buxton seemed closer to starting because the public participation and the engagement of the community has taken place. Should we say it's in full form?
And the PPP developer has already been identified.
Oh, you can't have
coming.
this without the developer being there. But this particular developer was not the first developer. There was a developer who preceded him, and for whatever reason, they were unable to continue with the project. Now, where the problem comes in again, at the time of inception, the talk was it would be 50 billion. This was 5 years ago. So now the cost will have gone up.
For sure.
Yes. So
Let's bring in this developer, and this is the other side of things, because we've seen the kind of pushback that we're seeing from the political leaders in Mombasa, some political leaders, some residents of Mombasa, some activists in Mombasa, and then we're also seeing the welcoming hands that the project is also receiving from some sections of the community in Mombasa. Suleiman Shabal is a businessman and politician. He's a man who has vied to be governor of Mombasa County twice, and now he is the one, his company has signed up to be the developer of the Buxton project, and now joins us on the line. Good morning, Suleiman.
Morning, Eric. Morning, Muga and Dundu.
Good morning.
I see Muga is sounding extremely sharp this morning.
It's a shirt he's wearing.
Shirt has contributed.
No, it's not just the shirt. It's the way he's posing these issues in a very astute manner. I'm afraid that we're in for a tough interview this morning.
You may be in for a tough interview this morning, but we want to bring out the issues as they are to ensure that
Exactly.
we get to the very bottom of this. So, Suleiman, your company is the one that is starting to deal with the Buxton affordable housing project. And then we saw the agreements that have been signed with the county government of Mombasa. We've seen reports that there have been, engagement with the residents of Buxton. Initially, there were reports that there was pushback and from some residents of Buxton. Where are you now with this?
I think let's start with where Muga talked about this thing. He was talking about there are two components to this whole project. Number one is the economic side, and number two, and perhaps more important, is the social component of this. And I got to admit that my interest in social housing goes back to 2007 or 2008, when I first visited Malaysia, and I saw the Malaysian government is giving, or rather is selling apartments to citizens for the equivalent of 2 million shillings. And I started thinking, if they can do it for 2 million shillings, we should also be able to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there is the social implications, because where are we going to develop these? We're going to develop these on the old estates. And the old estates already have tenants. And as Muga said, there is a village element to these estates, that people have grown up together there, they have lived there 40 years. So the idea of a rejuvenation of these estates is, yes, we have to come up with modern houses, we have to come up with affordable housing, and in the development of these estates, we have to make sure that we don't lose that community and communal feeling. Which is why when the original proposal for 15 to 20 stories buildings, extreme high concentration, I rejected that, because we would end up losing that whole community feeling and end up creating vertical slums. So this is an idea whose time has come. We have to find a way to do it in an economic and in a humane fashion as much as possible.
This isn't the first time that this has come about. Just looking at Buxton now, Suleiman, and a few years ago when this development was to have started, it seemed like something that you didn't support. What has changed between then and now?
Not correct. In 2013, when I first ran for governor, it was in my manifesto to do this urban rejuvenation. In 2013 and in 2017, and at that point in time, I was very clear about how it should be done. And I was insisting that there are four components which are very critically important. Number one, let's not lose sight that this is public land. So it has to be properly tendered. It has to be properly advertised. Number two, the tenants who are there need to be given some relocation allowance. Number three, there has to be public participation. Number four, the county must get something back in return for the land. And number five, I objected to these 15-story vertical slums. Mm-hmm. So 2015, when the county government wanted to do this, we took them to court, insisting that the proper process has to be followed, which they very smartly did. So when this came up again post the 2017 election, and the county has followed the right process, then I believed that the public interest and the commercial interest were being met fairly, and I thought the opportunity is right for us to push this agenda. So it's not correct that, I opposed it. No, It was in my plans right from the very beginning in 2013, before they even came up with this idea.
So certain things had to be in place in order for it to roll out properly. And do you feel that those things are in place now then for Mombasa to get the kind of facelift that obviously these kind of developments would contribute?
Yes, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, today we're here, tomorrow, 5-10 years will be gone. And people will ask, how was this thing done? Was this properly done? And one of the major components of any private-public partnership has got to be public participation, where the public will come in and give their point of view. Now, a lot of the politicians have been talking, oh, no proper public participation has been done. But there are three parts to the public participation. Number one, before they were tendered, did the county government do adequate public participation? Which is what I had challenged them in the past. And yes, after my challenge, they had gone ahead and done proper public participation, and the court ruled that the county had done the public participation. The next stage that after we won the tender is we now went and did consultation meetings with the committees and with the residents of Buxton, culminating in a huge meeting at Wild Waters, where the governor also attended. That was consultation. And the third stage was public participation, which was properly and adequately advertised as the normal public participation rules. And then we had 3 days of public participation. Every day, at least 500 people attended. What is interesting is that not a single one of those politicians who are criticizing this thing and demanding public participation, not one of them attended. So, you know, there's got to be some honesty to our political discourse and political dialogue and agreement or disagreement on any issue.
Sure.
Public participation was open, and they should have had the courage to come and raise whatever issues they have in front of 500 people over 3 days.
How did you win the tender, Suleiman?
Sorry?
How did you win the tender for this now? Because you must understand also, coming from a public perception, at some point you opposed it for the things that you said, which you've just talked about, and then now you support it, and you happen to be the one then now who's going to do this development. So then the question will arise, how then did you win the tender then to develop this area?
Okay, let me start again by correcting you, okay? I started by supporting this project. It was in my manifesto twice. So I've never opposed this thing. I opposed the process.
Yeah, for those reasons, sure. All right.
Okay, but once the process was corrected, then as far as I was concerned, the whole process became legitimate.
Okay.
And Buxton was tendered twice. The first time, some company won this tender and then did not perform. Then they advertised it the second time. It was publicly advertised on the website, in the newspapers. Two companies bid for Buxton. My company bid one, and another company bid also. But the second company did not produce any of the documents required, and consequently, we ended up winning this tender.
Okay.
And I want to point out that it wasn't just Buxton that was on tender. There were 8 different estates on tender. 6 of them, nobody was interested. So it's not like, this is something that everybody's scrambling for. It is only people who had a genuine interest to do something that bid for these contracts. What
would you mean that only people who have genuine interest for these contracts then would bid? Why would somebody who is in real estate development not see the opportunity, for example, to go and participate in any of the other 6 estates if there is going to be some commercial benefit out of it?
Look at the challenges that we're going through right now. Look at the political flack that we're facing. Look at the sensitivity to the whole thing. If it was a private development, you buy a piece of land, you do whatever you want to do, nobody's going to come and question you. But as soon as it becomes a public interest project, then political implications come in, then a lot of political noise starts to emerge. It's a lot more complicated than your normal. Now, for me, this wasn't just a business deal. This was an opportunity to show the people of Mombasa what urban rejuvenation could do and how much value we can introduce into the economy of Mombasa. The biggest challenge we have in Mombasa is that we, as an economy, have literally lost, and we need to find a way to rejuvenate our economy, ourselves. Now, all this noise you're hearing about SGR, the economy of Mombasa, according to Nairobi University study, we've lost 17.4 billion shillings. If Buxton succeeds, it will unlock at least 50 billion into the economy of Mombasa. That's 3 times what we have lost from SGR. And this is just one area, which is housing. Imagine when we start focusing on water, when we start focusing on other infrastructure and other problems that we have in Mombasa. We have the capacity to change our own economy instead of continuously being people who complain. And this is a fast start. Now, every developer who wants to come into this urban rejuvenation is looking at Buxton. Is Buxton going to succeed? If it succeeds, we are unlocking at least 50 million shilling investment into Mombasa.
Mr. Shabala, I want us to look at the social aspect of housing.
Okay.
Tell us about what you have planned for the current tenants of Buxton.
Okay. The current tenants of Buxton, we are giving them a relocation allowance of 240,000 shillings. We are then placing a deposit of 60,000 on any apartment that they book. And this is being done to encourage them to invest in this thing. Number 2, we're giving them first right to acquire apartments in Buxton. Number 3, we have negotiated with various banks to make sure that financing is available. So if you, Mugo, want to come and buy an apartment, unless you have a 20% down payment, you can't get this. But the tenants, we've negotiated with the banks that with 10%, they can immediately start booking an apartment. We are also negotiating with the government to see if we can fast-track the tenant purchases scheme. But as we speak today, the Kenya Finance Mortgage Corporation has been set up. Yes, the refinance company has been set up. The banks will be getting money at 5%, and they'll be on lending at 9%, which means that for the first time in a long, long time, Kenyans are going to get mortgages that are becoming affordable. Now, let's look at the young people in Mombasa. Many of these young people are either sharing rooms or sharing accommodation or renting bed sitters. A bed sitter in Buxton today will cost you 6,000 shillings a month, which means it is within the range of affordability for most young people in Mombasa. I have thousands of people who want this now. It's an opportunity now for young people to start building equity and to start buying their own property. Instead of paying rent, you're buying your own bed sitter. Hopefully 5 years from today, your income is a bit higher. You upgrade to a one bedroom and so on and so forth. This is what the Americans call the American dream. Now we're bringing the African dream as well.
Let's take a break before you do that. Yeah. So at 25 minutes after 7, let's take a break now. We are speaking with the Mombasa businessman and politician Suleiman Shahbal. His company has won the bid and is now rolling out the project of upgrading the Buxton estate. We are discussing the impact of this, and we're also discussing the politics and why, just trying to understand why there is pushback on this particular project. When we come back, we'll hear some more questions, and of course we have to get deep into this, understanding the politics behind this, understanding the benefits, especially for the current tenants of Buxton, and how other people, other residents of Mombasa and other parts could benefit from this kind of project. Good morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, Nairobi is warming up just a little bit. Partly cloudy conditions are 16 degrees, going to highs of 26 today and lows of 14. 13 degrees and partly cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 12. 24 degrees is the high that you'll experience in Nyeri today, currently at 14 degrees and partly cloudy conditions, mostly sunny at 13 in Eldoret. Expect some thunderstorms there later, highs of 21 and lows of 12. Expect rainy conditions in the afternoon in Kisumu as well at 18 degrees currently. It'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 17. Kakamega at 17 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 25 today. Expect some showers later. Mombasa, it's because there's traffic on Mombasa Road. Mombasa, 27 degrees, the high and lows of 23. Rainy conditions continue in Malindi. Light rain showers at 25 degrees, going to highs of 27, graduating to thunderstorms later on. Kampala at 19 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 19. Thunderstorms expected later. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 24, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Joburg is sunny, but the temperatures are dropping. 7 degrees this morning, highs of 24, coming down to this low. 24 degrees, clear skies at the moment in Lagos, turning to rains later with highs of 29 and lows of 24.
Traffic.
Make una follow me talk, I beg, because Mombasa Road be like saying not agree today. Mombasa Road, so take signature more, they happen. I beg, cabanas don't jam completely. It not make sense to use Mombasa Road now, Sha. If you not fit stay for house, you be like say you want take fly. If you want take reach town. Anywhere else, as they say, I'm like this now. Thika Road, you want enter city, no wahala day there at all. But be like say, if you not fit leave now, you for sleep for Kiambu Road because nothing they happen as we they talk. Make you see where else they happen. As you want enter city like this now, no problem, no wahala. But Mombasa Road, you go see tears today. That's how we talk. Spice FM KE Twitter. Now if you reach us today.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
The conversation continues at
94.4
7:30.
Spice
This
FM.
is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. Our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Joining us on the line this morning is Mombasa businessman and politician Suleiman Shahbal. We are talking about the Buxton renewal project.
Suleiman, as we went to the break, you talked about, looking at youth in Mombasa, younger people now being involved in owning homes and at least being able to, pay this rent of 6,000 shillings, removing them from this place and giving them then all the perks that came along with relocation while this development takes place. And if I can liken it to a situation that happened in Nairobi, whereby the talks of refurbishing in terms of infrastructure areas like Kibera, there was hue and cry. There was a lot of backlash because people were comfortable in their positions, whereby everything they needed they were able to get, in a very small radius, and didn't want to have to spend extra. Do you think you'll be faced with this kind of backlash, or is everything already paved and smooth as you go ahead?
The advantage of comparing what we have and what other people have done, there is nothing that we're doing today that hasn't been done in 20 other countries. Mm-hmm. So when we designed Buxton, we designed it literally like a mini village. Make sure all the facilities that we want are available there, from social center to a clinic to the small businesses that are going to be there, so that once you are inside Buxton, you literally don't need to leave if you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And one of the critical things that we learned is that the Buxton project is going to be built by people from Buxton. So we're training the youth of Buxton in plumbing, electrical, masonry, carpentry, security, environmental services. So it's the same youth of Buxton that will be managing and supervising the new Buxton that is coming up. Let's not talk about breaking. Let's talk about building a new mini city and a new mini village in Nairobi with all the latest modern amenities. When you look at what happened in Nairobi with Mugoya, Mugoya built a lot of estates and trained a lot of young people. These young people then finished the Mugoya estates and went on to open their own carpentry shop and their own masonry shop. So in a way, Mugoya created a whole new class of trained people who went out and created their own business activities. Mm-hmm. We want to duplicate that with Buxton. It's not that we're going to bring in a bunch of contractors, they do everything. No, we're giving the opportunities. Even the supply contracts were involving Vijana or Buxton.
You talked
so
about...
yes, they will obviously, anything big that anyone tries to do will always face competition. But we must always focus with the end in mind. Is what we're doing, is it going to be for the general good and for the public good, or is this purely another simple commercial project?
You talked about the 524 tenants, the current residents of Buxton, receiving some money, 240,000 shillings, and also 60,000 shillings deposit towards their eventual ownership of the new houses. How did you arrive at the 240,000 shillings, just comparing to what those in Pangani were receiving? Was it 600,000 shillings?
Yes, but
Pangani
only had 48 tenants.
Yeah, a tenant is a tenant.
Nope. Buxton has 524. If you paid the same amount of money, the thing that you're likely to do is actually raise the cost of that entire enterprise. And it stops being, the aspect of affordable housing can go out of the window with that sort of margin. That is actually just the reality. Mr. Shabal, please.
Was that the argument?
That's part of the argument, but then also you have to compare the cost of living and the cost of rents in Mombasa and the cost of rents in Nairobi. At the end of the day, these properties are not mine, they belong to the county of Mombasa. So we as developers are simply extending an extra helping hand. And Muga is right, at the end of the day, you want to provide affordable housing. If you end up paying so much more, then it doesn't become affordable anymore. I mean, look at what we're paying on a two-bedroom apartment. It's 300,000. The apartment itself is being sold for 3 million. So 10% already is being paid to the existing tenant before we've even put a nail on the ground. So there has to be a balance. It cannot just be whatever comes into your head. There has to be a balance.
So you've also talked about now this attracting about 50 billion shillings into the economy of Mombasa. Just paint this picture. How is this going to be realized? What is this new estate going to look like? What is this that is going to be worth 50 billion shillings in terms of the economy?
Okay, look at what we're doing in Buxton is roughly 6 billion shillings. Changamwe is approximately 17 billion shillings. Likoni, I believe, is about 15 billion shillings. So already between the three of us, we are almost at 40 billion. And there are 10 other estates that are available for development. So just between the three estates that are now at the proposal stage, we are close to 40 billion. And we know Zizima is also coming on spring. There are a few more others that are also targeting to enter into this thing. But everything depends on whether Buxton succeeds or not. And I'm requesting the politicians of Mombasa, look at the bigger picture. Okay, we need to bring investment into Mombasa. Any project that you start opposing, instead of opposing, first think out, is this in the long run good for the county of Mombasa? And if it has problems, how do we resolve it? It is very easy to stop everything rather than to build.
You're making this request to politicians in Mombasa, so are we to assume that what is the issue then that they would have with this development taking place in the manner in which it's taking place?
As far as I'm concerned, the issue is largely political. Unfortunately, because Suleiman Shabal is a politician, all eyes are focused on Buxton. I haven't seen anybody talking about the other projects that are in consideration right now. And if you look at the reasons that they're coming up, they're all political reasons. Or there was no public participation. Of course, there's been public participation. There was public participation that the county did when they came up with the whole concept. And the court ruled that there was adequate public participation. Then we did consultation with the residents. Then we did the formal public participation for 3 days. Now, what new issues are they coming up with? They will find some other reasons.
Mr. Shabal, I want to go back to the mention of the financing that has been made possible by the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company. You say that they are lending to the banks at 5%. Now,
correct.
Why can the banks not then lend? Because this is a different product, a different project. The whole planning around it is different. Why can they lend at 7%? Why 9%?
Okay, I was talking to the housing finance people, and they told me that from government they're getting 5%. They then have to pay to central bank 1%. So their cost is already starting at 6%. And they need at least another 3% for their operations and their costs and all that. And my guess is as the kit increases, banks will be forced to become more and more competitive. Housing finance is offering at 9% today. That's what we've negotiated with them. I'm sure that 2 years down the road, other banks will start to sharpen their prices and the pricing will come down to 7% or maybe even 6.5%, as we've seen in the United States. Because this is literally very cheap money for them.
You know why I ask is because if you look at the percentages we are speaking of, and you look at the amount of money we're speaking of, believe me, any percentage, even if it's 0.5%, is a great deal of money. So
you're right.
Yes. So if someone hikes this thing, and that saving or that amount that I'm speaking of the difference is something that can be passed on then to the tenant.
I'm sure that the housing finance people are listening to you. And right now they're offering at 9%. But give it another 3-4 years when a lot of other banks start to come in and competition increases, even the tenants themselves will start to refinance at lower rates. So I think it's a question of time. This is something new. This is something innovative. I think the government has made a tremendous effort to set this thing up. Let's give it a bit of time. Let's see how it goes.
I think time isn't really on our side when it comes to a project of this nature, given that 2022 is beckoning us the way it is. Let me ask this question. It's a little way off, but let me ask it all the same. A citizen such as yourself, can you have a discussion with the Central Bank of Kenya because they determine these things at the end of the day?
A citizen like me can have a discussion with the Central Bank because we speak to Central Bank. Unfortunately, as a banker, I do still have relationships with the Central Bank. But this is not in the purview of the central bank right now. They have given a facility at 5%. They've said 1% charges for us. The rest is market-driven.
Mr. Shabal, you and I both know that when it comes to rates and the things that people charge, the institution in this country that determines this is the central bank. That's why I've asked the question, and you know that's why I've asked it.
Maybe you're trying to corner me in a position where there is no corner here, my friend. Okay.
No, it isn't cornering, Mr. Shabal. I'm simply saying.
Okay, you're now moving into issues of finance.
Yes, I am.
Today, if you want to borrow long-term dollars or long-term euros on the international market,
yes,
for 15, 20 years, you're unlikely to get anything below 7-8%.
Okay.
So at 5% in shillings is not unreasonable.
Why I ask the question is because if I go by what one has heard as one of the complaints that has been raised, again, it's the amount that is being offered. If you're just talking normally and you're talking about what is available on the market, it's reasonable. It's very, very reasonable. But if the consumer doesn't find it reasonable, then how then can you say it is reasonable?
Let me answer you in a different way.
Yes.
If I was Minister of Finance,
Yes.
I would have convinced the President, let us subsidize this housing. And therefore, it becomes a cost to the National Treasury that we are subsidizing these low-income and social housing mortgages.
Yes.
It's a political decision. It's not actually a financial decision. If you look at the financial decision that's been made been made now, based on current market economics, I think it's a reasonable position. Obviously, as a citizen, I would have loved to give and to make available to the public housing at 3-4%. So it's a political decision. Now, next time you get the boss on radio, you ask him that question. Unfortunately, I'm neither the Minister of Finance nor am I the President.
Thank you.
So there's a caller from Buxton who's calling, and he'd like to contribute to this and maybe ask you a question. His name is Saidi Bidu. Saidi, good morning. Good morning, Saidi.
CT, habari ya asubuhi mwalimu.
Si jambo Saidi. Hofu kwako.
Naam. Alhamdulillah, sisi tunashukuru tuko salama huku, na huyo madam naye vipi ya jambo huko. Sasa mimi comment yangu ya kwanza, wajua iko you use this phrase very many times CP. Unasema government officials, they throw words. And that is what Shabal is doing right now. He's just throwing words at the whole issue.
Please explain yourself.
I am a resident of Buxton. And to me, I believe that the first thing that they should have done, we should have been on board from the word go. Before, because wanasema kwamba the county government talked to us before the tender or after the tender. We have had no contact or any talks with any person other than these last three sessions of what is it called, public participation. That's the only time that we talked to Shabal and the county. Now, what was the problem there is that these guys have already decided. This is how much we are going to pay you, 240,000. You asked a good question. How did you arrive at that? And of course, he just threw words at it. How did you arrive at this? If we had sat together, in fact, like we would have decided, said, apana, ata hiyo 240 ni mingi, tumpatie 200,000. But we also have needs. This land is government land. Ata sisi tuna haki pia katika ile ardhi. So what is happening right now, on the ground, definitely there's going to be violence after this because we have not been consulted. We do not know what is going on. Just Jana, Juzi, they were issuing notices at night. Imagine. That is what Shabal is doing.
No, wait a moment. Just hold on a second. Who was knocking? Was it who? You included Shabal in this discussion, but who was knocking at night?
His people sent the police. With the police. They came at night to give us notices. Now, why do you do this? If it is a genuine thing, I believe we should have been, in fact, unaweka tu meza pale nje na unaambia kila tenant ende akachukue notice yake. But all of us refuse to get the notices. Why? Because it is shady. From the word go, we don't see where this is going to.
Saidi, may I ask you a question, Saidi?
Please do.
You're saying that public participation did not begin from the word go. When is this word go? Because as Suleiman is explaining, he's saying that once they got on board, they have had public participation. And even before public participation, there was a session called consultation. At what point did you expect to have as residents of Buxton, to then engage with the county government? From what point?
Well, when the tender was issued, after the tender was given, we expected the county government to come and sit with us and tell us this is what has happened. We have issued this tender, and this is the developer. So kindly, what we need is just to talk and let us listen to one another. But he does not want to listen to anybody, Shaban, because he believes he knows everything. He is Alpha and Omega. He knows the governor. So
Saidi, what you're saying has to be responded to, because you're accusing Mr. Shabal rather strongly.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Let's hear what Shabal has to say about this.
Very interesting. You see, Saidi Bidu is one of the members of the committee that is strongly opposed to the Buxton project, and I respect their right to oppose. Now, I'm not a government official. Let's start that. I'm not a government official. I am an individual citizen, just like Said Bidu. And he's saying that there was no public participation done before the county was allowed to go to tender. That's his point of view as an individual. The court, on the other hand, ruled that there was adequate public participation, which then allowed them to continue these discussions. Number two, he's questioning how did this 240,000, how was this figure arrived at? If he had discussed with us, we might even have reduced it. My friend, if the people of Buxton hear you talking like that, watakunyonga. Okay? There are two committees in Buxton. There's a committee that represents the majority. It is led by a gentleman called Sheikh Khalifa. And the committee is almost 20 people. They have, this is the committee that we started initial consultations with. And they negotiated this figure. We were talking of a much lower figure. And they pushed and pushed and pushed until we reached a figure of 300,000. So for him to say that there was no consultation is completely not correct. And number three, he's talking about notices being given at night with police and all that, implying as if people are being forced to move out overnight. No. Notices are being given in the evening because everybody is coming back at work. And the notice is basically a letter from the county informing you that this is the compensation you're being offered. You have 3 months, if once you collect your money and once you accept, you have 3 months time to move. Nobody is being forced to move out at night. And finally, Saidi is saying that, you don't want to talk to us. It's not true. We have offered to meet them. My last offer was to meet them last Sunday. And on the advice of their lawyers, they then declined to meet with us. So I have stated publicly, I respect your position to disagree. That is our democracy. I wanted to meet with them. They declined to meet. Now, if Saidi is honest, he will admit it here that, yes, I did try and meet with them. We have text messages from them refusing to meet. Now, you cannot talk to somebody who doesn't want to talk.
So, Suleiman, it sounds that like there's what you're calling the majority who are okay with the project so far, and then there's a minority who are not okay with the project. What are you going to do with the minority? And then what is likely to happen if the minority, say, reject this offer, they refuse to move, then what happens?
You know, democracy, and we are a democratic country, takes the interests of the majority first, and the minority shall be heard. The minority shall have their say, but the majority shall have their way. Now, as part of the ESA, we hired a sociologist to go and do a study and do a survey. 85% of the residents of Buxton have already agreed to the project. Another 5 or 6% have been missing. They're not able to be traced. They're either not in their homes or traveling or whatever. There's a 10% that is adamantly opposed to this project. At the end of the day, this property belongs to the county and the people of Mombasa. It is then a decision that the county government has to make. But when Saidi comes here on a public radio show and there'll be violence, what is he inviting? I don't think that is the type of language that responsible citizens should be looking and talking about. We need to look at the greater interest of the people of Mombasa. Yes, there are 545 residents of Buxton. There are 1,800 new residents who want to come in and own their own properties. There are 304 business people who will end up owning shops. Where is the greater interest?
So how do you engage people like Saidi and the political leaders who are opposing this project? How do you engage them as you now gear towards actually breaking ground for the project?
We're talking to them.
Could you give us the timelines of what's expected now to happen between, let's say today, the 23rd of September, until the completion, the day the first tenant should move in?
Okay, notices have already been circulated. And when we say notices, it's not like you've been given a letter, here's your letter, leave tomorrow. No, it's a notice that you have to go and receive your 240,000 compensation, and immediately there's an offer letter for you to book your apartment, and you have until December 21st, which is exactly 3 months, to make alternative arrangements. And then the project moves on. We're expecting to break ground on the 2nd of January, 2021, and complete and hand over the first apartments within 9 months.
If people refuse to move from the flats, what will happen by that date?
That is a county decision.
Correctly responded to it. True, it is a county decision because it is a partnership with the private developer and the county.
What would you advise the county to do?
In my view, we need to look at the greater interest of the community. Okay, let's start first with the residents of Buxton. Buxton today is completely run down. Anybody who lives in Buxton and who's honest about this will admit, the property should, by all intents and purposes, been condemned years ago. The roofs are leaking, the sewage doesn't work, there's no proper water system, there's absolutely no environmental controls within Buxton. It's time for a change. Now, the vast majority of people of Buxton want to live in modern houses like everybody else. This is an opportunity for the people of Buxton to own their own properties. And you'll find people saying, but we're paying 5,000 shillings or 4,000 shillings. Yes, you're paying 4,000 shillings, but you're paying it to the county government of Mombasa. Here's an opportunity to pay 5,000 shillings and own your own apartment. And if you're buying a 3-bedroom apartment and the rental is the mortgage is 30,000 shillings, you can't afford it, and you're saying, I'm about to retire. My friend, call your children. Okay, everybody chips in and buy a family house that eventually will belong to the whole family. This is how families build wealth. So if you look at the interests of the majority of people in Buxton, in the long run, this is good for them. If you look at the majority of people who will move in. Today, we haven't even started advertising this thing. We have already more than 1,000 applications. So where is the greater interest? This comes back to the whole concept of social housing. At the end of the day, these estates belong to the people of Mombasa, the general people of Mombasa, not the 10, 20 people, the Said Bidus, who believe that they own this property. They don't own this property. It belongs to the people of Mombasa, and the county government and the county government, not just of Mombasa, but every single city in Mombasa, of Kenya, have to look at where is the greater good. Look at the jobs that this thing is going to create. Look at the business opportunities this is going to create. It's in the long run, it is the greater general good that everybody has to look at.
Suleiman, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. And yes, if you look, this is not just a project for Mombasa. It's a project that has been spearheaded by the national government, the urban renewal. It's happening in Nairobi. It's happening in other parts of the country. We hope that the local authorities, that the county governments, are going to approach this in a manner that is going to be for the greater good of the people, and then bringing everybody on board, or at least the vast majority of the people on board, so that everybody then sees the value, present and future value of this project. Asante sana for speaking to us.
Eric, before you go, there's just one closing thing that I want to say. Okay, I am absolutely certain, and I'm absolutely clear in my mind that what we are doing is for the interest and the general benefit of the people of Mombasa. Yes, there's a commercial element to it. Yes, there's a profit element to it. Hii si kazi ya kanisa. But in the long run, the people of Mombasa will benefit from this. And we should not allow politicians to bring petty politics in what the city of Mombasa desperately needs to grow, not only in housing, but in water, in all other problems that we have. This is the way of the future, not continuously complaining. We must take control of our destiny.
Well said.
Thank
Asante
you.
sana.
Thank you very much.
I think it's the first step.
Asante, Mheshimiwa.
Asante sana. Have a great day,
Thank
Suleiman Shabal.
Thank you, all of you. It's, as usual, very nice. I love your studio.
Thank you very much.
You're very kind. Thank you.
You'll be welcome, actually, once we deal with these COVID issues. You'll be a
Thank
guest
you.
soon.
Thank
Asante
you.
sana.
Thank you.
Keep it right here. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on KTN, Home and Spice FM. 2 minutes to 8.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Well, it's coming up to 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on KTN, Home and Spice FM, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. In the next hour, we shift the conversation and start talking about education. The Kenya Private Schools Association CEO, Peter Ndoro, will be joining us, and we'll be talking to him about private education, private schools, what's happening to private schools, the plight of private schools right now, the status of private schools, are they ready to reopen? How many, if any, are not going to be able to reopen this term? I mean, when the government basically says, let's go. If it's August, if it's 5th or whatever date. Good morning, it's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so
Traffic.
we're being told that it makes no sense to use Mombasa Road this morning. It's an absolute mess. This is all the way from the Signature Mall. This is past the Mlolongo Weighbridge, and it's a bit crazy. Okay, it's a lot crazy. All the way through then to Cabanas this morning, guys. So it's looking like it's going to take a lot more than patience to get through there. Okay, let's take a look then also on Mombasa, or on Thika Road rather, and getting into the CBD, not quite as painful, but we know that Kiambu continues to be the sandwich that it normally is every morning. So there also requires a dash of patience as well. You can use the service lane. Thank you for that, Ruth. Use the service lane on Thika Road and you should be able to get through without too much of an issue. All right, getting into the CBD from other parts of Nairobi, from Langata Road, from Gong Road, and also from Westlands, shouldn't be too painful at the moment. Let us know if you find an alternative. Eastern and Southern bypasses up for use, so that's not causing too much of an issue there. Industrial area, no-go zone right now because it's going very slowly because 2 of the major roads have been closed for road construction. Spice of MKE, let us know what you see and we'll try and make it easier for you to move this Wednesday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 8. The conversation continues. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri is 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. We're also live on KTN Home for the next 1 hour as well. We are on KTN Home every day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Let's talk about education now. There was a story that appeared in the Standard yesterday, that was carried in the Standard yesterday, that was talking about the plight of private schools. And even the education CS, Professor George Magoha, advising parents. So if your school, for example, has been closed for one reason or the other, you need to consider now taking a child to public schools, because remember, government is footing 100% tuition in public schools, which brought in that issue of, indeed, the way we are seeing businesses in other sectors not being able to reopen after this pandemic, it's also affecting schools. And we know schools, once they were closed, schools depend on revenues come from parents paying fees. If you have not received fees for an entire term, and you still had all these running costs, then the likelihood that your business is going to be severely impacted is high.
But also of significance, remember that this private school play a very important role in subsidizing government efforts.
Yep.
These students are Kenyans, and if there were enough public schools for them to go to, the business of private schools wouldn't have begun in the first place, because it would not be a viable business.
Of course, with high standards of quality as well.
Yes, they would.
Yeah.
So they are partners with the government. Now, the government has been known to bail out private institutions. They have. In the Western world, the governments don't even pretend about it. They take out funds and they make sure. And there are many ways. We've also mentioned this in this studio. There are many ways in which the government can ensure that some of these thriving institutions actually do not go under. But it looks like the government does not seem to see the role that these schools play. Because when someone says they can go to... the public schools are overflowing, not full. Overflowing.
There's a reason the parent was not taking the child to that public school
In the first
In the
place.
first place.
Yes.
And you've got to consider that.
Yes.
There must be something that compelled this parent to take their child to that private schools. And also, you must remember that when you're talking about private schools, it's not just, the big name private schools. We are also talking about those small schools in estates. Like in the informal sector, there are small schools that are there. Now, these people who are business people who are running these schools, you still had rent to pay and all the other running costs, and that's why the businesses are not going to be able to reopen.
You know, these private schools took over from what previously had been called Harambee schools. They actually meet a need. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist.
They wouldn't exist if
Yes.
they didn't meet a need. And if there was no demand for them, you wouldn't find that many parents had taken their children there. And I think that's one thing that just has to be taken into consideration, even as we start this conversation, that we're not talking about things or institutions that parents took their children to on a whim. There were reasons why they did this, and there was also a demand for them, and that's why you see them coming up. It's not like a fair weather fad that somebody decides, okay, let's now introduce a private school tomorrow. It's actually that they're meeting a need, whereby there would be profit and a commercial aspect to it. They are actually meeting a need in the communities or in the societies where they exist.
Let's bring in our guests for this hour. This is Peter Ndoro. Peter Ndoro is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Private Schools Association. And Peter, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Good morning and welcome to the Situation Room.
Good morning to you, Latif, and thank you for having me.
Peter, we just started from, I know that the Kenya Private Schools Association is a membership association, but also I'm sure you may have some data on those who are non-members who are also impacted by COVID-19. If you have any statistics that you can share with us, the schools that have been impacted and how severely they have been impacted.
Thank you very much, Eric. And yes, I want to start by saying that indeed private schools have really been affected by this pandemic. Across the country, we have about 9,800 registered private primary schools that offer kindergarten and primary education through to class 8, with a student population of about 2.3 million learners. We have about 1,600 private secondary schools running from Form 1 to Form 4 with a student population of around 300,000. This brings the total number of learners in private schools to around 2.6 million. When this pandemic was announced on the 13th of March and subsequent closure of schools on 16th of March, private schools were the most affected because, as we've always said, private schools depend on school fees that is paid for by parents when learners are in session to support their operations and payroll. So in the absence of school fees, private schools have really suffered in terms of maintaining their operations and also supporting their staff. So what has happened so far from the statistics that we have and the indications that we have received in our office is that by Monday this week, 191 private schools had indicated that they may not be able to reopen when the reopening is eventually announced, because they do not have the money to put up the infrastructure that is required for the management of COVID-19 when the schools eventually reopen. And some have decided to venture into other businesses, and therefore they have decided that they are going to close their schools. These 191 private schools that have decided to close have a student population of about 51,000 and about 1,400 members of staff that will be affected. So this has impacted negatively on private schools, but we are hopeful because the discussions that we've had with government and the promise that we have received from the government about a stimulus package to support the education sector and specifically the private schools, the 7 billion that was promised by the government, we are hopeful that this will go a long way in assisting the private schools stay afloat and continue expanding access to quality education for the sake of our children and our country.
Whereas a promise or of any sort by the government would seem a little bit hopeful, Peter, the reality, as you have just said, is that 191 schools may not be able to open. Now, you might look at 51,000 students vis-a-vis 2.6 million that you talked about as a drop in the ocean, but it really is not, because one student out of school when they should be in school is more than too much, as far as I'm concerned. So now, with these 191 schools that are probably faced with the possibility that they would not open, they wouldn't fall into the bracket of this stimulus package. They wouldn't stay afloat because as far as they're concerned, they've already gone under. So what would happen essentially to these 51,000 students then who do not have a school to go to? What would happen?
Now, it is regrettable that a number of our schools will not be able to come back. That is indeed regrettable because the role they play in expanding access to quality education cannot be overemphasized. We would have loved to see these schools continue in operation. But because of the challenges that they have faced, they are unable to come back. But as I've said, we have over 9,800 primary schools with around 1,600 private secondary schools. These learners, the 51,000 that were in these 191 schools, will have to definitely go back to school. So the big question that we need to ask ourselves, how are these children going to school and which schools are they going to go to? Mm-hmm. Are we going to expand the facilities that we have? Is the government going to accommodate them, or where should we be looking at in terms of where they go to school? So for us within the association, we are encouraging these learners to ensure that they get placed. And the majority of these schools have actually been able to link up with other schools so that when the schools eventually reopen, they have a place to go to. It is not that the schools have just closed and therefore the learners have just been left on their own. There are processes that the Kenya Private School Association, through these affected schools, have put in place to ensure that these learners do not get lost and get an opportunity to continue their education. But at the same time, we have also been asking the government, together with the other partners, the financial institutions, to expedite the promise of a stimulus package so that some of these schools can reconsider their decision to close completely, and some of the schools that may not probably know whether to reopen or not can be able to reopen. But we are hopeful. We are hopeful that at least in the fullness of time, this support will come and these private schools will continue being in operation.
Being hopeful is a very good thing that you live on hope, Peter. But
yes.
How many months is it since the president announced this particular stimulus package for private schools or for the education sector? What have you heard since then in terms of have you received any communication from the Ministry of Education asking you, for example, reach out to your members, this is the application form, this is the minimum requirement that you need to qualify for this package? Any communication of that sort?
We have been in constant communication with the government because this stimulus package that the private schools might be getting is not a grant. It is a low-interest credit facility that the government is going to extend to the private schools. And therefore, this money will not come to the association. This money will come to private schools through the existing financial institutions that have the structures to extend credit to private schools. So at the moment, what we've been doing, we have submitted to the Ministry of Education, we are also submitting to the Treasury on some of our proposals as Kenya Private Schools Organization on how these funds can be administered by the commercial banks that we have in our country. That is what we've been doing.
How far has this conversation gone? Have you had a roundtable meeting, for example, with the Treasury, the Ministry of Education, to discuss what you've proposed and to be told this is viable, this is not viable? Is there any light at the end of this long tunnel?
Allow me to say that the engagement between the Kenya Private Schools Association and the government is very much alive, and that discussion is ongoing. And the discussion that we've had so far are very promising. That is what I can say for now.
Actually, what you've actually said is interesting insofar as you've said it, but surely, Mr. Ndoro, if I were a member of the association, I would like to hear something a little more concrete. This is what we proposed. This is what has been mooted. This is what has been agreed upon. This is what we've been told to expect. Along those lines, what can you expect?
And these are the timelines within which I hope to be able to access these funds so that I can make my final decision to either completely abandon this business of private school or hold on.
Now, thank you very much. You know, as I've continuously said, private schools have been promised by the government that these funds will be made available. We have already presented our proposal in terms of how we want to see these funds administered so that as many private schools as possible can be able to benefit and ensure that none of our schools actually closes shop. So at this point in time, we all know that our government collects its taxes to support its programs from the economy. And the economy has not been doing very well. And there are very many challenges. So at this point in time, the government is prioritizing on some of its obligations. And one of them that they have told us is they are going to prioritize on education. And therefore, private schools, being part and parcel of the education sector space, they are going to be considered. So when the government is prioritizing, it will prioritize the support for Kenya Private Schools Association, the 7 billion that will go to private schools. And therefore, the timeline that has been given to us is that this money will be made available before schools eventually reopen. And remember, a decision has been made to reopen the schools in January of 2021. But then because of the behavior of COVID-19, the reopening date might come a bit earlier. So we have again restarted our discussion with the government to ensure that in view of the fact that we may reopen the schools earlier, if that announcement is made, then this particular support should come a bit earlier. So that's where we are in as far as the discussions are concerned.
When you said it was a low interest loan that you're being afforded, how low is it?
From the private schools perspective, we have requested that the government avails this money to us at 3%. That is what
at
we have
3%.
At 3%, yes. That's what we have requested the government.
And what have they offered?
That is something that we are still discussing between ourselves and the ministry and the government. But our proposal is that we get this at 3%, just the same way this facility has been given to other sectors like the small and medium enterprises, as well as the tourism sector. So our proposal has been that this credit facility be available to private schools at 3%.
So we're saying that these are the sectors that you've mentioned have received this particular assistance at that rate of 3%.
It is not that they have gotten it at 3%. I can't confirm that. But what I'm saying, our proposal is that the government gives it to us at 3% and give it to us just the same way they have given the SMEs and the tourism sector.
Okay.
And we hope that the government will actually accept to give it to us at 3%.
Actually, where I'm going with this is, if indeed now you are in discussions, schools are supposed to start in, say, next month. Okay. So if you're going to restart a school which had been closed, are there not some activities that the schools will have to undertake before children can actually be admitted in? At the time we have left, let's take the view that the money is given. Let's be completely and absolutely optimistic and say the money has been made available. Is there enough time for all the schools to actually prepare and to be ready to admit students in an environment that, A, not only will be safe, schools are safe, but will be healthy, and that all the considerations for staying safe and to prevent COVID from attacking them will have been put in place within the time we have left?
You know, for us as Kenya Private Schools Association, we have been looking at 2 avenues to support our private schools access credit facility. One of them has been approaching the government to support us with a stimulus package, which is still ongoing. The discussion is still ongoing. The other is discussions with the commercial banks across the country to facilitate private schools access affordable negotiated credit facilities to enable them to be able to invest for reopening. And that has already been done. At the moment, we have a deal with the Equity Bank, we have a deal with Family Bank, we have a deal with KCB. We are also working with ABSA to ensure that private schools can be able to access credit facilities to prepare for reopening. And what I can assure you, Latif, is that
the question was asked by Muga. The name is Muga.
Yes, Muga. Yes, Muga. Yes, I want to assure you that for us as private schools, we are ready for reopening as and when that date is pronounced. Because we will be waiting for the government, and we will also be taking advantage of the commercial facilities that are available to us in the market. at this point in time. We are also working with other partners to extend certain flexible facilities to private schools, because everybody understands that private schools have really suffered because of this pandemic and because of the prolonged closure of schools and lack of resources between that period. And therefore, very many of our partners, very many of our suppliers are actually flexible and would want to support the private sector. So for us, we are saying, at the moment, we are ready, we are set. And we are hoping that when this facility from the government comes, it will actually enhance what we are already doing, and it will help us in a big way. But at the moment, we are looking at, if the announcement to reopen schools is made in such a way that we are opening in October or November or December, then we'll have to work with what we already have in the market, right? Then when the government facility comes, it will complement what we already have and assist the private schools in a big way.
As you're looking at this, I mean, there's also a large section of society and parents who've, complained about the fact that they may not be able to afford school fees should schools open. I mean, around education, I think we're using those words may, shall, and perhaps quite a lot before any kind of opening happens, because still, truth be told, nobody's really quite sure of what's going on. However, should schools open, they are complaining that they will not be able to afford school fees because they didn't plan for it. They were looking at 2021, as you have also talked about. And then now, in the middle of things, they're then being made to rework their mind. The minister, the cabinet secretary rather, then went ahead and said, if you can't afford private school fees, then join the public schools. What do you think about that? At the position where you are as the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association?
First of all, thank you. First of all, when the pronouncement for January 2021 reopening was made by the Cabinet Secretary, he did indicate, and very strongly, that the decision to reopen schools may change based on COVID-19 cases reducing consistently within 14 days, or a positive intervention is discovered before 2021, and that decision to reopen 2021 may change based on the reports from the Ministry of Health and the prevailing circumstances or the increased knowledge of COVID-19. So the decision to reopen in 2021 was not cast in stone, and the public was advised that that decision may change, and therefore we should be ready for that particular change. That date would have come much earlier or would have delayed, depending on the behavior of COVID-19. Where we are at the moment is that COVID-19 cases have started to go down. And we have been told by the Ministry of Health that we are towards flattening the curve. And therefore, the decision to reopen the schools in January 2021 can now be reviewed. And that's what the stakeholders met, discussed, and agreed and said, yes, we are now ready for reopening. So we are waiting for the president to make that announcement.
But we must understand also, Peter, that stakeholders also include parents here. It's very important to understand that. And even though the parameters of COVID-19 would have changed, somebody not having money in their pocket hasn't changed. That didn't change. Yes. If somebody lost their job because of COVID, that status has not changed. If somebody's salary was greatly reduced because of COVID, that has not changed. So the stakeholders at this point, unfortunately, include parents as well, who now are saying that they're not able to afford this because of 1, 2, 3. Now, had they had some more time to prepare, it may have given a different outcome. But that seems not to be taken into consideration. So even as you say that the announcement has been made, their reality is still very much front and center.
Peter, take a break now, and you'll come in and respond to this. And also, looking at, are you ready to have conversations with parents who are not able to pay school fees? As you say, you're ready to reopen schools. Are you ready to also accommodate students whose parents will not be able to pay school fees? This is a conversation that we're having with Peter Ndoro. He is the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association. It's about the education sector. It's about the impact of COVID-19 on the education sector. He's already telling us about 191 private schools have indicated that they may not be able to reopen. should schools reopen today. This would affect about 51,000 students, learners across the country. This would affect about 1,500 staff. What happens to all of these? Keep it right here. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly, 25 minutes after 8.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nyeri. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Slightly overcast in Nairobi, mostly cloudy conditions at 17. We'll go to a high of 26 today, but those cloudy conditions will continue for some time. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 16, going to highs of 24 today. And in Nyeri at 16 degrees, it's partly cloudy, going to highs of 24 as well. Eldoret at 16, partly cloudy and expecting thunderstorms later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's 22 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu, going to highs of 28. Expect some showers later on in the day. Kakamega will experience rains later, going to highs of 25 and coming down to lows of 15. And Mombasa is mostly cloudy at 25, going to highs of 27 and down to lows of 23, with rainy conditions expected later. The rain continues to come down in Malindi at 26. It will rise to highs of 27 with thunderstorms later and highs of 21. Thunderstorms also forecasted for Uganda as you step out of Kenya. In Kampala specifically, it's mostly cloudy at the moment. It'll turn into rain conditions later. Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees. It's going to experience rain later with highs of 31 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is mostly sunny at 8 degrees, going to highs of 24. And wrapping it up for now in Lagos, 24 degrees and clear skies. It'll change later though with rains with highs of 29 and lows of 24.
Traffic.
Today is Mombasa Road. Call it Mombasa Road. That's it. How many times did I call your name? Mombasa Road, Mombasa Road, Mombasa Road, guys. So from this morning when that truck did its thing, nobody's been able to move as quickly as they'd like. I know. It's not as fun as we'd like to see. But you'll get out of it eventually, that's for sure. As you get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, though, and head towards Westlands, it is bumper to bumper on Uhuru Highway. Getting to the CBD otherwise is not too painful. Coming in from Thika Road, that looks good. So apart from the normal crazies that we see this morning, it's not so bad, guys, if we're going to be honest. But hopefully, if you're stuck, we can get out of that soon enough. Traffic where we expect it to be. The bypasses looking good. It's going to take you longer, but it's clear. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Schools may reopen next month, month after next. Schools may reopen soon. We're waiting for that announcement from the Education Ministry, from the government, on when the schools are going to reopen. But the point is that schools are going to reopen at some point. Whether it's October this year or January or February next year, schools will reopen. And students will want to go back to continue learning.
Eric,
Are schools ready?
All this is predicated on the understanding, in my opinion, not entirely true, that COVID is no longer with us in the same manner it was before. So should we suddenly test more people, and should we suddenly find that the numbers are getting higher, then what will we do?
Reclose schools.
The new norm and the norm that the ministry seems to have fed us with, and we now believe, is that they will continue flip-flopping. You know, the uncertainty is a bigger problem than the reality of COVID and what it is that it entails and how it relates to the education sector.
For sure, in this case, what you don't know is what is giving people the heebie-jeebies more than anything else. What you don't know.
The heebie
what
and
you-
who?
The heebie-jeebies.
Okay.
What you do know, actually, is what everybody else does. What you don't know and what tomorrow may bring, as I guess may be defined by most situations in life. But what you don't know in this case concerning COVID is actually the scarier part of anything else.
We're speaking with Peter Ndoro. He's the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association. Our topic is private schools, students, parents, an uphill task. And as we went to the break, Peter, Ndu had raised the issue of, private schools and school heads are saying we are ready to reopen. Should you tell us to reopen? We are ready. We are prepared. But there's the other aspect, the economic impact of COVID-19. Should you notice that many of the parents who are coming to bring their children back to school are saying, but I am not going to be able to afford the school fees as I had paid in the first term, what then?
Yes, thank you very much, Latif. I just want to talk about the issue of the parents and their ability to pay school fees. And I want to say that when the decision to reopen the schools was made, the views of the parents were sought. And we were in agreement, the representatives of the parents, and we were in agreement that yes, it is time for us to reopen. But then when it comes to issues of school fees, what are we going to do? And we have said yes, parents will be allowed to negotiate with schools, bearing in mind that there are certain obligations that must be met. Everybody understands that everybody has been affected negatively by COVID-19, and more so our parents. And therefore, we have agreed as education stakeholders that when parents come, we will listen to them.
Peter, let me just interrupt you. I think we have a problem with the audio. Your earpiece is not so clear. Just have a conversation with John as we continue with this. Ndu, do you feel like private schools then would be ready to admit learners without the proper full amount of school fees? Remember, this is a business that has not been in operation for the last 6 months.
It sounds like something great.
They need
to
all
say.
the money that they need up front, so they're
Exactly.
able to even adjust themselves to COVID.
I mean, something that Peter himself has said just as we started this conversation is that unlike public schools, the private schools depend 100% on the salary, on the fees that parents pay for their children to attend in order for them to do everything, to provide learning, to pay staff, to provide lunches and things like this at school and transport, etc., etc. They depend 100% on the school fees that is paid. Now, a number of students coming or a number of parents coming and say, actually, because of what we see, we are then not able to afford 1, 2, 3. It sounds great that people would come down and have a conversation and sit parent after parent after parent, saying that we are not able to afford the fees. It sounds almost as wonderful as what the government says when they're going to buffer schools in terms of the stimulus package. That still has not happened. In reality, I don't see that if you have the majority of parents coming with their students and saying that we're not able to actually pay fees, that schools are going to be accepting of it and say, okay, it's all right, come along and just learn. When you're ready, then you can pay. It would be nice, but I don't see that happening in reality.
You know, the COVID, as we've said on many occasions, has actually stretched the capacities of our economy, individual businesses, the citizenry,
beyond
anything that we had imagined. Now, what then comes to mind is when you're an association that is representative of such a large group of people and a large population of citizens who actually depend on these institutions for their future, not even just the present, for their future. then there is the question of preparedness that these institutions would have. We are this institution, we represent you. Okay, now, how then should we expand this representation? That should we have an occurrence of such a situation? Because this is usually a warning. If this has happened, it means it can happen again.
Yeah.
What will we do? Okay, there's been the negotiations with the banks. So let me ask a specific question. The negotiations with the banks, what rate are the banks offering these schools? Okay, in terms of interest, and over what period are the schools allowed to pay this particular money? Because you can offer something that some schools will not be able to afford.
Yeah. Peter, you already told us that you're already in partnership with a couple of banks. So what are the terms of these facilities that they are offering?
Now, first of all, we need to understand that commercial banks are regulated by the regulations of the Central Bank of Kenya. And there are certain terms that must never be compromised. But in this case, and for us as Kenya Private Schools Association, we have negotiated with financial institutions for a longer moratorium in terms of when we are going to start repaying these particular facilities. We've talked about how the facilities are going to be spread in terms of repayment. We are not going to repay it on a monthly basis. We're going to do it on a termly basis. We are not going to start repaying these facilities immediately. We are going to start after probably 6 months or 8 months, 9 months, depending on the different banks, so that schools by that time would have stabilized and are able to start repaying this particular facility. So the discussion that we've had between the different financial institutions is to make it easier for private schools to access these credit facilities and be able to repay in a flexible manner. Schools will be assessed by the financial institutions in terms of their capacity and their ability to repay the credit facilities that they'll be asking from these financial institutions. But then what we have negotiated is on when should they start repaying this facility. In terms of rate, that has also reduced significantly because it's not going to be like what we have on the commercial market. We are going to get something which is a little bit cheaper and more flexible.
How much?
That is what we have discussed and agreed with financial institutions.
How much?
Sorry?
How much? I'm speaking this for the benefit of any proprietor of a private school who is listening to this and they are not aware, and now they'd like to know.
You know, I can't be able to really say that we have negotiated 10, 12, or 13%. But what I can say is that whatever has been negotiated by these financial institutions will also depend to a bigger extent on individual schools and their relationship with the financial institutions. But what I can guarantee our members is that the rate that has been negotiated by the financial institutions that just mentioned will be cheaper than what is available in the market. It is cheaper. At the moment, we know the financial institutions are giving loans at 13, 14%, but the ones we have negotiated are lower than that particular rate. But it is depending on what Equity, Family, KCB, and ABSA will be giving us.
Very true. I understand that you may not be able to tell us the amount, but okay, how much lower?
Hello?
Hello?
You know, there are those who, you know, when it comes to issues of giving a rate, it is not just getting a flat rate, because there are very many other parameters that the banks look into. And one of the things that they're looking at is their relationship with individual schools.
True.
For example, at the moment, what is being offered in the commercial market is 13%. But then depending on the relationship between a school and a financial institution, that rate will go down. And depending on their relationship, it can go to 11%, it can go to 12.5%, it can go to 12.7%. But what I can assure you, and I can assure our members, is that the negotiated rate for these facilities, specifically for private schools, is less than what we have on the commercial market. It is less than 13%.
Okay.
You've said a number of times, Peter, that you're ready. You are ready to reopen schools, should be asked to reopen schools immediately. You'd be ready. Now, when I think of readiness, I'm thinking the number of things that even the ministry has said needs to be put in place to ensure that learners are safe during this COVID-19 period? One, social distancing, that you have got to then look at how many students per class. You're thinking about provision of water, sanitation, masks. If you look at the schools that offer transport, then you also have to consider social distancing in that. Are you saying that all these things have been put in place by private schools as well?
We have assessed all the requirements that have been given to us by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. And we have said that this is possible. We can be able to put in place these measures and prepare for reopening. One of the most critical requirements that is required is the issue of water resources. We have hand washing stations at different strategic places in the school that has adequate supply of clean running water. Do we have liquid soaps? Do we have sanitizers? Are our children going to have appropriate masks? Do we have non-touch thermometers for temperature checks? Do we have first aid kits to manage cases that may arise in school? Can we be able to put in proper training and sensitization programs for our members of staff? Are we having designated places for temporary isolation? Those are things that we can be able to put in place. It is not that we are saying that we're going to do something out of the ordinary. Yes, these are abnormal times. There are certain things that we have to put in place, but they can be managed. And that's why, for us as Kenya Private Schools Association, and working with our members, we have reviewed that particular document, and we can confirm that we can be able to meet the requirements of the guidelines and be ready for reopening.
Mr. Ndoro, does the association have schools in some of these far-flung areas that have been hit by the ravages of climate change? They have flooded, they've had landslides. Do you have private schools in these areas?
Yes, Kenya Private Schools Association is an association of private schools across the country, whether they are low cost, whether they are medium cost, they're high cost, all these private schools, as long as they are registered by the Ministry of Education and offer a curriculum that is approved, they are members of the association.
Are you saying
we have certain areas of this country that have been affected by the floods, they have been affected by drought, they have been affected by very many things. We are saying those are isolated cases that we are dealing with, and we are working together with government, together with other partners of ours, to try and look at how do we support this particular institution, right? So we are isolating those the most affected. And in fact, working with our other partners, we have already secured certain facilities. We have already secured certain facilities that is going to support the most vulnerable of the private schools that we have across the country. And therefore, we are cognizant of the fact that not 100% of the schools will be ready. We might have 2 or 3 other cases in different counties that we must be able to support and address.
I hear you being quite optimistic. So, I mean, from where you are, it's to mean you're at the starting blocks and ready to leave without any issues whatsoever. I mean, and any issues that would pop up, it seems that you're, able to cover those without any issues whatsoever.
What we are saying is that in terms of reopening of schools, not 100% of us will be ready, but a majority, and the bigger majority, will be ready. Because what we have been asked
What
to put in
percentage?
place,
When you say majority as a percentage, what would that be?
I can tell you over 90% are ready. At least 90% are ready. So
and
the
where
smaller
ready here
percentage,
means what? They have safe water?
they have water resources that is required for management of COVID-19. They are putting in place measures to access sanitizer and disinfectants. They have made arrangements for learners to get face masks for COVID-19 management. They are putting in place issues of health. They are linking up with the healthcare facilities to be able to manage any cases that may come. We are putting in place a robust training program for the teachers. We have communication to the parents to assure them that when the children are coming to school, they will be safe. When they are in school, they will be safe. When they are going back to school, to home, they will be safe. We are, ensuring that there is guidance and counseling departments that are active in schools that will deal with stress-related issues that may arise as a result of the effects of COVID-19. This is what we are talking about.
The efforts
This is
are
exactly what we're
very,
talking
very
about.
laudable, Mr. Ndoro, but there was the question we asked, just for the sake of our leaders and myself, because I didn't quite get it. What about those parents who will not be able to pay the fees?
Sorry?
What will we do with the parents who are not able to pay the fees?
I have said that schools, both public and private, we are aware and alive to the fact that we have parents who will have a lot of challenges. And we will listen to them. We will negotiate. We will discuss with them and agree on the modalities of payment. Just the same way we are talking with financial institutions to allow us develop a flexible repayment plan. We will also allow our parents who come to us and we'll deal with case-by-case basis and agree with them on how they are going to sort out certain requirements in terms of school fees. We will do that. We are not rigid. We are flexible. And we want to make sure that our parents also come back. Because at this point in time, we are not looking at, as private schools, we are not looking at making money. We are looking at ensuring that we survive and we continue expanding access to education. And we have to do this with our parents. And that's why we will consider each case as it comes, as it's presented to us.
In relation to what you've just said, previously you said that any school which has been registered with the Ministry of Education offering an acceptable kind of curriculum in a private capacity, then is automatically a member of the association. Correct so far?
Is qualified to become a member, yes.
Okay, so when you say this then, and having said that, it is then the position of the association that parents who may come to school and have these challenges of paying school fees. So now, is this now an accepted thought across board, across institutions in the country, so that nobody will go to school then tomorrow and say that I am not able to pay school fees? And according to the association, there is the understanding that we can reach a compromise across board.
You know what I've said, and I've continued to say, is that we are alive to the fact that we have challenges, and our parents will have challenges because of COVID-19.
Peter, I understand that because you have said it severally, so I get it. But what I am asking now in this case is that across board, any school that is in a private capacity, and there's a parent who goes to school and says, I have this challenge, by virtue of the fact of what you have just said, then should be given the consideration of understanding.
Given the consideration of
understanding that they may not have that money at the moment, that there will be a conversation that can be had so that the children can go to school while they go and look for the money. I mean, if we're just going to be practical about life, this is what's going on right now. Is that the agreement on the understanding across board?
Yes, that is what we are talking with our members. I'm saying we have to negotiate and agree with our parents.
Okay.
And we have to balance the requirements of the school and also the need for us to allow parents. If a parent comes to us and tells us, look, I'm not able to pay 100% of the fees now, but I'll be able to do this on a monthly, weekly, or whichever basis, that's acceptable to the school, that will not ground the operations of the school to a halt, then that will be considered. Yeah, we want everybody to understand that as schools, we need to operate. We need to continue offering education. And that will require the support of parents in giving us resources. So if we get resources adequate to enable us to continue doing our business, we will accept, I will agree to that. So it will be a balance between the needs of the school and also the needs of the parents as well. That has to be a very clear balance.
You know why we keep belaboring this point, Mr. Ndoro, is because we're alive to the reality that some parents may not be able to pay you any money in the short term, in the medium term, and the long term. Their sources of revenue are decimated, either by natural disasters or just by COVID-related issues that have affected the entire economy. Now, if that is the case, is there any other form of payment apart from Kenya shillings that you will accept from the parents?
I don't know which other form of payment private schools or even public schools accept other than...
okay, let me give an easier example of boarding schools, if they are private.
Yes.
There's a lot that a parent can provide to the school, which need not necessarily be cash.
You know, and that's why I've said specific individual schools will make a determination on what form of payment is acceptable to them.
If a parent, for example, comes in and says, okay, fine, for me, I will provide, and there is that need in the school, I'll provide, for example,
Milk.
vegetables, I'll provide, and there is a need for that, and the school agrees to that. Why not? But that is dependent on individual schools. It is not that we will say parents can take to schools whatever they want to take. No. Parents have to take courses that have been requested. But if a parent feels that, for me, I have maize, and the school will require maize or rice or vegetables or X items, and I have it, you will go to the school and negotiate with the school. And based on the understanding of the school that they have that particular need, they will require that, then you can negotiate and agree on that to offset that as part of the school fees. But we cannot generally say that we will accept anything that parents bring, so that if somebody has chicken, they will bring chicken to school, and the school does not have in its provision anything to do with chicken. We are saying that fees has to be paid, yes, but then parents will have to negotiate with the school so that there's a clear balance between the needs of the school and the interests of the parents. That will have to be done, both in public and in the private school. It is not just us, because public schools will charge money for boarding facilities. And therefore, there must be a very clear balance between the needs of the school and the ability of the parents.
Just a spot check, Peter, just a couple of people who've already spoken to us this morning and made visits to their children's schools just to find out in terms of preparation what's going on. From where you said that everybody's ready and we're rearing to go, nothing has changed. In terms of measures being put in place, water centers here, more space for children to learn.
Isolation
facilities, absolutely
training for
nothing.
teachers and staff.
Nothing, absolutely nothing is in place. And this is one example coming out of Mombasa. I have two examples coming out of Nairobi. This is just this morning as we're having this conversation, where you've said that everybody is ready and raring to go. There are certain examples where nothing has changed since March 15th, when schools have changed, or when schools closed, and then moving forward. No readiness. Nada, as CT would say, nothing is going on. So then how do we say that, unless it's a blanket general statement, and then hoping that people will get their ducks in a row as time goes by?
Now, I want to also take you back to what the Cabinet Secretary pronounced Monday this week. And he said that teachers will need to report to school latest to the 8th of September 2020. And when they report, they will need to ensure that there is full implementation and compliance with COVID-19 guidelines on health and safety protocols. There are certain things that probably would not have been installed in school because there was nobody in school to ensure that these things are safely utilized or placed in school.
So then you cannot now say then that people are ready, Peter.
What I can say is that as soon as the school, for example, when we talk about issues of hand washing stations, it is just about placing the hand washing stations in the strategic places, right? If it is about issues of liquid soap, if it's about issues of sanitizers, you can't go to school and start seeing sanitizers all over. Because
true, those are pretty easy. Those are pretty easy, Peter. But when it comes to social distancing, that if you may require extra facilities, is there any discussion that maybe schools may require extra facilities, extra classrooms to accommodate their student population? Remember, already you've told us that 51,000 students from 191 schools that are unlikely to reopen will need to be reaccommodated in other private and public schools. That means a school, for example, that is near another school that has closed permanently will have to take in extra pupils and extra learners. Is there provision for extra classrooms?
You know, what we have said is that it is not just about learners learning in classrooms. Learners can learn in different areas within the school. And that's why we are asking our teachers when they go back, they look at the spaces that is available and what can be done to utilize them as learning areas. Children can learn in the dining hall. They can use the library hall. They can use open spaces. They can erect some makeshift classroom. That is what we're talking about. And remember, the issue of saying that we have to put in more classrooms or put up It is not about establishing or building more classes. It is about creatively and innovatively using the spaces that we have within the school to ensure that we accommodate the recommended social distance.
So
within the
all
school.
these things
It
taken
is not
into
about
consideration,
putting in
Peter,
new
it could be that readiness right now is a thing of the mind because people want to get back to school. But in terms of actual tangible readiness across schools in the country, that readiness has not been attained.
I can't say that. I can't really say that because we have talked with all the stakeholders that are in charge of school readiness programs. And we all agree that if we go back to school, if we take our teachers back to school, if we go and put in the COVID-19 school-specific committees, they are going to work with the guidelines and ensure that it is fully implemented and accommodates everything that is required. Yeah. So we can't really say at this point in time that we are not ready.
All right.
We are ready. And everything that has been put in the guideline is achievable and can be put in place by schools under the circumstances that we have at this point in time. It is just about the will and the will of the teachers and the school management to put this things in place. Once that is achieved, everything will fall into place. And remember, as I've said, we might have challenges here and there. And that's why we are calling back the teachers to be in school.
Okay.
So that they can assist us in the thinking process to make sure that we prepare schools for reopening.
We end that here for now. Thank you very much, Peter Ndoro, for speaking to us. Peter is the CEO of the Kenya Private Schools Association. I want to say thank you very much to our audience on KTN Home for joining us from 7 o'clock up till now. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home, 7 to 9. But this conversation continues on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, in Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, in Nakuru. You can catch us on 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret. Nyeri is 90.9 and 97.7 in Malindi. Good morning. It's now 3 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
So do you think schools are ready to reopen?
No.
They're ready to get ready.
They're ready.
I think that's what I heard.
Honestly,
they
they're
are
ready to be ready.
They're ready to be ready to reopen. But in terms of whether all these modalities have been put in place, whether they are practically there, whether if tomorrow learners went back to school, they'd find soap, water, running water, hand sanitizers, masks. They'll be able to find those thermometers for just screening them as they get into school, whether they'll be able to find teachers and staff who've been trained on how to handle COVID-19. Isolation facilities are in place. Desks have already been arranged, and we have decided that this classroom can only accommodate 10, and the others are going to learn in the dining hall, and dining hall we're going to subdivide it into so that it can accommodate. This hasn't happened. So they are not ready. They are preparing to get ready.
It's right now. It's a state of mind, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but just look. That's just what we're looking at right now. Once the announcement is made, you're going to see a lot of because we're still at an if and maybe shall.
Yep.
Once that's done, you're going to have a lot of people scrambling about, and even then, not everybody is going to be ready.
All right, so keep it right here. In the next hour, we open up the conversations to you, 0719 012 600 or Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, right around 9
Traffic.
o'clock, and it looks like most parts of the city not suffering too much right now in terms of traffic. And this is just Nairobi. Let's take a look outside of Nairobi for a moment. Looking to Mombasa, and we know that, you know, some of the road work still continuing. It's not too bad, guys, getting into the city right around Mariakani, and then you get into town, right into Moy Avenue. There was a bit of a hold-up, but that's fine. So Mombasa is looking good, given the all clear this morning. Look on the other side of the country and in Kisumu. Let's start Nakuru. Nakuru in and out of town, not a problem either. Into Kisumu, in and out of the city, no problems there today. Traffic is flowing very well. So back into the NMA, where we saw it was looking bad, not too bad right now. It's very slow though. Muthaiga heading then towards the highway. In and outbound on Thika Road today is looking a lot slower than we would like. Same for Mombasa Road. We're going to sit it out and see how long that will take. Spice FM KE, talk to us in case you get stuck, but you shouldn't be for too long now.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
2.5
day.
minutes after 9, CT.
Yes?
What is today's proverb?
Today's proverb is very simple and very clear.
Eh.
I know it refers to things that we refer to as insects. Okay? Okay.
Bloodthirsty
Insects. Vampire-like insects. The day a mosquito lands on your testicles is the day you will know that there is a better way to resolving issues without violence.
Why are you laughing?
Because CT referred to things as insects. Anyway,
But you consider mosquitoes what? Birds?
never you mind.
Because the flying capacity. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not on the mosquitoes.
Well, we have
That
this
one.
discussion.
I
Okay.
left the mosquitoes a while ago, but
Let's
okay.
expand the discussion then, shall we?
Can we not?
Okecha Oko R on Twitter at Oko Okech says the Private Schools Association CEO sounds like any business that had been locked down during the pandemic. We are ready to reopen even tomorrow. When were these reopening measures put in place? Do they have desks? Are all the teachers coming back? When were they readied?
That's the question.
No, we are ready even tomorrow.
Today, say
We
afternoon
are
session.
ready.
Afternoon session.
Essentially, we are even
Yeah.
ready tomorrow, today.
Today.
Hey, you want us to? Yeah. Come on. I mean, it's desperate times, man. Call for desperate measures. It's like those business people who just tell you, "I know a guy."
Just sit there.
You know,
for
there are very few things in this country that carry with it the sensitivity that schools have. You touch on matters relating to children, and believe me, that conversation can change before your very eyes, and it can do so swiftly. It's not something to toy with. It's not something to play around with. Because it is one of the biggest investments that parents make in this country. their children's education.
Right. They're making the biggest investment with their most precious.
Yes.
So they're not going to toy around or play
No,
around
they
with
will
it.
not. They will not. And because of that little reality, there is need for the same seriousness with which the individuals treat their businesses to treat the people who make those businesses possible with the same seriousness. And the seriousness I'm speaking about here is a little forthrightness.
Absolutely, which is why I was saying, this whole stakeholder conversation has been stakeholders, government, stakeholders, association, stakeholders, union. What about the most important stakeholders, in my opinion, when it comes to the education of children, is the people who are bringing the children to you in the first place to
See,
educate.
there's the Parents Association that also sits there.
Have they, when he mentioned
Yes.
in terms of preparedness, in terms of what was going to happen in schools, unfortunately, the parents didn't come into play.
No, he talked about the Parents Association.
Yes, but now
Having
in terms
these
of,
conversations with them.
having the conversation is okay. But in terms of readiness, in terms of what schools are actually going to do,
That particular statement would have been augmented well if we heard from the Parents Association. We even have a national association that caters for this group of people. If they could also have come out and said, folks, we support this statement because we have seen A, B, C, D.
But also,
Yes.
the Kenya Private Schools Association, when it's going to these meetings, it first has consultation with its members, right? So it takes a true picture on the ground to the meeting. This Parents Association, which parents does it consult before it goes and
Thank you.
sits in these
Yeah.
meetings?
Which parents? Across the board?
Does it have, a conversation with the parents and says, all right, so we have across, the association offices, our branches. So the parents in the coast area, this part of the country, these are their concerns. The parents in this other part of the country, these are their concerns. The way you're saying, if the parents in West Pokot, the parents in Baringo are talking about, well, we don't have schools.
in the
That
first place.
is-
You're
yes.
talking
This-
about,
this
you're
ceased to
talking about
exist.
preparedness
Yeah.
and we're saying,
There are no
excuse me,
schools.
There's no schools.
Some are washed away.
Yeah. If that is what the Parents Association chairman is taking to the table, then you can say, yeah, the Parents Association, the parents' voice has been heard. Without that, there's a guy who attends those meetings who calls himself the chairman of the Parents Association, but I'm not
Actually,
sure.
those
Representation
meetings
zero.
don't quite work that way. If you take a simple activity that is very common in our schools, it's something called harambe. The Board of Management can decide this thing is required. The next port of call is to talk to the PTA.
Exactly.
That's the next port of call. And then a committee is now set with certain members of the Board of Management
BOM and the
and
PTA.
PTA. So it is joint. Now, what they come up with, again, is discussed before it is now told to the larger body of parents. It's a process that actually involves some very serious consultation. Because at some point, you're going to have to involve these parents in this harambe. Because they're the ones who are going to actually be contributing. How do you think they're going to even think about contributing if they have not participated properly?
Let me tell you something, Siti now and Eric. The overarching issue
that
here
one.
is that even those who you would think are okay and maybe don't want to say it, and when they speak in their closets of confidence, what they are telling is that they are not ready financially to send their children back to school. It's not even, honestly speaking, it's not even a matter of readiness. Children, as Eric has often said, children are playing in their estate without masks. People are doing and going around their business as usual without any issue. If we're talking about COVID and preparedness, right? In terms of washing hands, how many people are checking if their children are playing in the estate and coming into the house washing their hands? That flew out the window a long time ago. I'm telling you, the issue here, when you're talking about this preparedness, what is making the heart beat a little faster is that parents are wondering where they're going to get the school fees to send their children back to school. I'm telling you, ask them now, are they more concerned about the readiness of schools or the readiness of the pocket? That's the issue. Whereas they were in their minds ready to go back to school in January. They said, okay, even if I don't have now, the next 3 months is going to give me some time to be
Okay.
able to prepare. That's
So maybe
it.
we should ask that question. Are you financially prepared for schools reopening? As a parent, are you prepared financially for schools reopening? Much as schools, whether schools are ready,
Let
whether
them talk
teachers have
about
been
all that.
recalled, whether TSC is ready, whether protocols and what
Place.
has
Whether
been,
the soap has been
whether
manufactured.
all those things,
Desks,
fine.
what-
As a parent, are you prepared to send your child back to school? financially. So Peter Ndoro was saying, yeah, case by case basis. Go to a certain school, and the school will have a conversation with the parent and say, what do you have? The thing is, you must have something. You can't go and say, I've brought my children, 4 of them, and I have 0. And then the person who's running this business tells you, it's okay, you let them just come. It's okay. When you have money, you'll pay. Of course, there's no business person who's going to do that. Tell you, it's okay, just go home.
And
especially now.
Even when things were okay, quote unquote, it was still a difficult conversation to have. Yeah. Now imagine when nobody has money and then they tell you, it's okay, Eric, just bring, no problem. We'll accommodate you. When you have, you bring. I lie. Nah, lie.
0719-012-600. Also, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Are you ready financially to take your children back to school? We're talking about not just school fees, but like you said, in those couple of months, these guys have grown.
Yeah.
The shoe that he came home with on the 15th of March, he cannot go back to school with that shoe.
Can't.
Sweater, shirt, shorts, whatever, everything. They need new uniform. And then you need to start thinking about the school fees that you ought to pay. If you've been using private transport, you have to think about the private transport. If they've been using public transport as well, you have got to think, how do they get to school? You've got to facilitate them going to school. What is it? Are we ready as parents to take our children back to school? Eric Odongo in Karen, good morning.
Good morning, Latif, Udo, and City.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm good. You asked about if the parents are ready for the school.
Yep.
Personally, I'm a young parent, and apparently I'm not ready because my job. I'm a chef at Karen. You know what happened with the hospitality. So we are being laid off. I mean, we don't have jobs now. I have 2 kids in private school. So I think we are not ready. I mean, even if the government say that they're going to open this month or the other month, I'm not ready. I'm not ready because how will I get the fee for my 2 daughters?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing we can do, but we are not ready as parents. Okay, that's me. I'm speaking about me.
What would you propose?
Nothing. What did I propose?
Yep.
I think they should give us time. The president should reopen the economy. After opening, then then they open school at January. I think that one will help.
So push the reopening to January. But first reopen the economy now.
The president should start reopening the economy this month.
Okay.
And then he will give us some months.
Yep.
We pay our bills.
Yep.
And then we start to do our school. But if we open school without reopening the economy, how will I get even food for my daughters?
Yeah, true. We hear you, Eric. Thank you very much.
I think so. The president should reopen the economy first, then we open the school.
Okay.
They cannot go hand in hand.
All right.
For the young parents like us, but for the others, I think they're just good.
Okay. I don't know if this is good. Well, 0719-012-600. The question we're asking is, are you financially ready for schools reopening? And this is talking about school fees that's required. This is talking about you may need to purchase new school uniform, new shoes for the children. Are you financially prepared to take your children back to school? Brian in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready, Latif. What I was saying is that the government should first of all open the economy. People should get back to work. Then in January, they reopen the school. Yes.
Okay.
So
but
right
for now, parents have no money. They can't even sustain themselves.
Thank you very much, Brian. Still, let's say in Mombasa. Festus, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you.
Say hi to my other colleagues there. Your other colleagues there.
Hi, Festus. Good
Your
morning.
colleagues are here.
Hello.
They're fine.
Hello. Morning to you, how are you, sir?
We are
Now,
very
I want
well,
to say
thank
this.
you.
Kenyans are very funny people. The people who are pushing the reopening of the schools are not the parents. They are the brokers, the suppliers, people who have been doing business with the school administration. Those are the people who are pushing the reopening of the school. Because generally, at the moment, there's no any parent who is financially sound. None. Some have lost their work. Their jobs.
Yeah.
The businesses have been crushed. And when the government initially said that they were going to open schools in January, people psychologically prepared for January. So this hullabaloo of Mara today, Mara next week, Mara next month, it brings confusion kabisa. So you wonder, what type of a government do we have? They can't stick to their own words. When you say that January, people focus for January.
True.
Yeah.
At the moment, there's no business which is functioning. Everything is down.
So you think these are just brokers who are pushing this agenda?
Purely it's broker. How will you suggest how will you be pushing the government to open schools when you know you don't have money? At the same time, when schools reopen, it comes with other expenses.
Yeah.
You have to buy you have to buy uniform, you have to buy shoes, you have to pay for tuitions, so many things. Are we prepared for that? And that's why you see most of the parents are against it.
Thank you.
But one fundamental thing is this.
Yep.
You see, you people are doing a very good job highlighting the inconsistencies, highlighting the problems which the parents have. Nobody wants to hear the parents. Where can parents air their views so that at least the government can listen? It is only through you people.
It's here, yes. Thank you very much, Festus. Have a good day in Mombasa.
Thank you so much.
We stay in Mombasa. George, good morning.
Morning to you. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the discussion.
Asante sana. Are you financially prepared for school reopening?
Now, whether financially prepared or not, we need to ask ourselves the basic question, okay? And the key thing that we need to ask ourselves is, why are we going back to school? What is the basic reason for that? And the reason we're going back to school is because of the children, okay? Now, one of the things that we need to understand is that the educational calendar has already been altered. We cannot change that. Now, would it be wise going back to school when the year is almost ending? How does that affect the children? They cannot cover the syllabus for 2020 with the time that is left. Even if the children were to go back to school, they will be going back to school not to cover the syllabus for the year, but basically for learning, okay?
Yep.
We can push the syllabus and all that stuff to 2020. They can go back to the children that or the parents that can afford to take their children to school. Let them be free to do that, okay? For those that can't, let's wait for them. Let the syllabus that they were supposed to cover for 2020 be covered afresh from 2021. By that, we will have factored in both those that have and those that don't have the ability to take back the children for the remaining 3 or 4 months. But no parent will be left out because either they lost their job or they couldn't make it. But we will still factor in those parents that are in a financial position to take care of the educational aspect of the children. Basically, that covers both the parents who have the ability to go back. But one thing that the government should do is open up the economy, let the parents pick up the pieces from there.
Asante.
Then come in January, let's just take a fresh start, forget about 2020, and kick start from there.
Asante.
Thank
you very much, George.
Sir, thank you.
0719-012-600, 19 minutes after 9. Let's take a look at the skies.
This is the Situation Room. the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, the sun is peeking through those clouds. It's 18 degrees and mostly sunny conditions in Nairobi. Highs of 26 today and lows of 14. 24 degrees a high in Nakuru. A chance of rain later, coming down to a low of 12. We're going to see lows of 14 in Nyeri. 24 degrees a high and partly cloudy conditions throughout today. Sunny conditions in Eldoret for now. It'll be thunderstorms later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's partly cloudy in Kisumu at 22. It'll go to a high of 28 and a chance of showers later in the afternoon, as is the case in Kakamega, where it's currently partly cloudy at 20. Mombasa is mostly cloudy at 25 degrees. We'll experience some rain later on with highs of 27. Still continues to come down in Malindi at 26 degrees. It'll come to thunderstorms later, then going to highs of 27. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 21 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 18, and thunderstorms expected later. Mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 31 and a chance of rain in the afternoon. All right, warming up a little bit in Joburg, 11 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 11. Lagos is clear at 24, highs of 29 and down to lows of 23. Well into Wednesday evening in Beijing, light rain showers being experienced at 18, which will be the high, and into the night the rains will continue. London is mostly cloudy at 16, highs of 18 and lows of 9, with the rains expected later. Paris also will experience a shower or two with highs of 23 and lows of 11. And finally, for now, it's Wednesday morning finally in New York at 17. Sunny conditions through the day with highs of 28 and lows of 17.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
23 minutes after 9. Comments coming in on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we'll also be taking your call, 0719-012-600, as you, as parents, are ready for the reopening of schools. Andrew Sule says, nothing has changed even at home. The kids have been playing without face masks for 7 months. Let the schools resume, Spice FM. The more you talk, the more nothing will change. Augustus Kipatalam says, Eric, we're not ready. Uniform, fees, and above all, schools are COVID unprepared. The CEO is a businessman, not taking his careless advice.
Right.
Ordinary citizen says, is homeschooling accepted in Kenya?
The answer to that is yes.
Is it an option that can be explored?
Yes, it can.
What are the modalities of homeschooling? So what do you need to do? How do you verify that you're actually following the curriculum?
I don't know
syllabus.
the details, but I do know of parents who've actually taken their children through that homeschooling setup. I know.
And then you register for KCPE, KCSE?
Yes.
I see. So 0719-012-600, that's the number to call. We'd like to hear what you think about this. Are you prepared financially for the reopening of schools? We're talking about school fees. We're talking about uniforms, just like Augustus is saying, all that, are you really prepared? You see, when, and this is the issue here, when we are talking about school and we're saying, yes, people have had their livelihoods impacted severely by COVID-19, is there a possibility? I mean, what's the reality that even if the economy were to be reopened today, somebody who lost their job in March, April, May, June, July would then be able to get a job now, be able to be in a position to pay school fees and to finance that lifestyle and to take their child to school, even if schools are reopened in January? What's the reality of that? I mean, what's practically? Is that a possibility? Say on Monday, the president says, all right, guys, we have hit the 5% for a couple of weeks now. Let's reopen. Let me remove the curfew. Let's open the industries that had been shut completely, like bars. The economy is open. You're a parent. What's the likelihood that you are going to be able to then get your livelihood back and be able to take your child to school come January?
But I don't think there's any surety. I mean, with things like that, you just don't know. But what it does do for
There are
you,
percentages, man.
no, you don't know if you can get your livelihood back.
True,
You don't know
true.
that. You absolutely don't know that. You don't know that
What
you'll
are-
apply
what
for
are-
a
what are
job
the
tomorrow
chances?
and get a job tomorrow. Or you don't know that if you have a little money, you start a business and you start making profits that allow you get some money if you had previously lost your job. You
Can I
don't know
change the
that.
question so that we can look at a different response?
Mm-hmm.
When you have such situations, the institution that takes the pivotal role in ensuring that things are balanced is the government. If you look literally around the world, there are some governments that stand out more than others. But they're the ones who took that role of ensuring, looking at every sector in the economy, if it's legislatively ensuring that they can spend more that they can spend, they went through that route. Okay?
Yep.
If it means guaranteeing and talking about specifics, as in this amount of money has been put aside for this period of time for people who are vulnerable. In this country, we've seen it, though it was for 6 months, but we've seen it. Targeting institutions like schools and saying this amount of money has been set aside to do A, B, C, D, set aside, and given the modalities of how, meaning it's not just a certain amount mentioned and then figure out how it's going to, you're given details. Now, when the government takes such a role, even if they are borrowing, they then tell you what the money is for. The difficulty we have is that we do borrow money, and not very long ago, the issue we're dealing with here and we're discussing was how money that was borrowed for COVID. Was it 460 billion or 430 billion Kenya shillings? And the question was asking, okay, the amount we've gotten, where did it go? What did it do? At a local level, when we looked at the money that the Ministry of Health gave out through its Department of Infrastructure to the counties, there was a complete belly-up, cock-up in that particular... complete.
Yeah.
The counties outrightly lying that they had done things that they hadn't done.
Yep.
Now, this is what makes our situation difficult, because the words we hear, but our experience, our lived experience with the actions that are supposed to follow is really and completely an undiluted iffy.
Totally. Going to the phone lines. Collins in Kitale. Good morning.
Yes,
How are you, Collins?
I'm very fine.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Yes.
So, are you...
I was just saying,
Yes.
I'm not ready to take my child back to school. Because if the government will sort out the tuition fees, hello?
Yep.
Yes.
If the government will sort out the tuition fees, then I'm ready. But if it's up to me, then I'm not at all ready to take my child back to school.
When do you think you would be ready?
January. My mind was set on January. So until January, that is when I'll be ready.
Okay.
What is it that you are prepared to do between now and January so that by January you'll be able to afford taking your children
My
back to
mind
school?
was programmed for January. So my plans, everything else was set for January.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a child who is in the candidate class?
No.
All right. So, Collins, thank you very much. And people are saying, many of those who are calling are saying, look, we had started working with January. Then now this whole talk of October, where has it come from? Why have we started moving and shifting goalposts and even coming to October 15th?
The truth of the matter, even come January, if you ask me, January would still have been hearing the same things we're hearing right now.
Which are?
We're not ready. You see,
from parents,
it's not as though come January, people will have gotten back their jobs. It's not as though come January, their financial positions will have changed. Come January, even if right now, today, COVID has come to an end and we're trying to revive the country or the economy.
Yep.
Come January, what in reality will actually have changed? Honestly speaking, tell me.
Not much. And we're talking about millions of people who lost their jobs.
Yes.
It's not one or two people then that you're talking about opportunities will be available for them. It's millions of people.
There's the vortex and the compatibility of how the economy works, all right? You produce things because there are people who are going to buy it.
Yep.
All right? Now, these people, for them to buy it, need to have a source of income that enables them to buy this thing. Now, one, that source of income is not there. Let's start there. So, if that source of income is not there, even if you are in a position to produce, who are you producing it for?
You have no market.
Nobody's buying it.
Yes.
Because guess what? The people who would ordinarily buy it also have had their incomes affected.
Yes.
So
it's a vicious cycle.
A vicious cycle. Honestly, it does.
Hezekiah in Kisumu, good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Morning.
Yeah. I just called last week. Clearly, if somebody is up his mind, it is really relevant. How can you destroy the school calendar? Why don't they hold until January? Then the kids go back to school soberly. Even the parents now are even traumatized with the COVID-19 thing. Some lost their jobs. You see, my kids just attended school on January. I took my child to school on January, and my kid came back after learning for 1 week, and I even paid the fee for first term. Then she was brought back. Then what is really happening? Because what I know now, the fee I paid the other time on the first term of this year, I think they're still there intact. Why can't they wait until January for us to prepare? And if the government is really concerned with their people, let them just caution us for first term, second term, like the other caller, the other week, who called if the government can really pay for first term and second term, then we prepare for the third term. And then when I understand the first term, the kids didn't even learn. And why is it they are going to learn? For this time, they are going to learn for two terms only. Is really government really serious, or they are just playing something with the people?
Good point.
That's my concern. I'm just ready to take my kids back to school from January.
Thank you, Hezekiah. Thank you very much. John in Nyandarua, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning,
We're fine,
John.
Very well, thank you, John.
Yes, very fine. Now, I'm not prepared for to take the children back to school. Reason is we should have waited to see the behavior of this disease. You see, we might be affected by the second spike, because I was looking at the way that the British government and the Spanish government opened. I think it was last month, and now they are complaining about the second spike. They are looking now for ways and means on how to close certain sectors.
Right.
Yep.
So if we open up now and we have not watched the behavior of the disease, we might start crying again, and this might affect our children, affect our teachers.
Yep.
So why don't we just hold on a bit until January? It will cost us nothing, and we see how the disease behaves. Because what is even mesmerizing now, people are not even taking care. They are handshaking now. They are not wearing masks. So you never know what happens.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you.
That's all.
Ali Abubakar in Mombasa, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. I think I'm not ready to take my kid to school this year until next year. The government itself is not, in fact, ready to make sure that the kids are safe in school. So there's no point. This is just risking the kids' lives.
So not ready at all.
Not ready at all until next year.
Is this because of financial reasons or because of your...
Both financial reasons and the COVID.
Okay.
They've not controlled everything.
All right.
All they are doing is just collaring money here and there. And they must be having very good reasons for pushing for the kids to reopen this year. They must be having very good reasons.
Ali Abubakar, thank you very much. Let's hear from Zachary in Nakuru. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning,
Morning.
Zachary.
Morning.
Yeah, yesterday I was unfortunate that I didn't follow you because I had to attend to some other very urgent issues. But this morning I'm with you.
Karibu.
Now, let me say this, yeah?
Yep.
That any person who is keen or who has been keen on following the trends of COVID-19 should realize that COVID-19 is here to stay with us. And that is why even this guy who Trump loves to hate, the Secretary General of, the guy who deals with health, yeah? I don't recall his name, said that...
Called Dr. Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, that guy. Trump loves to hate him. And he's the one who came up with this, coined this phrase, the new normal, yeah? I think everyone has to come to reality with the new normal. You know, COVID-19 is going nowhere. It is here with us. It is here to stay with us, yeah? Now, what should be done is, just as the Ministry of Education is proposing, that let us try with this phase, yeah? This group. And then they come in. Then we watch. I was in a hospital somewhere yesterday, yeah? In fact, a level 5 hospital. I'm trying to do something there. And let me tell you, Mr. Eric, people have now come to realize that, COVID is a reality. People are making noise that, that guy has gone there and he's gone forward and he has not sanitized, yeah?
Yeah.
This thing is kicking into a head. And let me tell you, just as somebody said there will be no, when the government wants to tax us, it doesn't come to consult him or Imadro there. Do you have money? Because you want to tax you, and then they got to do, then they come to Zachary. No. So if each and every one of us is to be asked, those of us parents, kids at home, yeah? Because of the economic problems that we are facing, yeah? We are going to say, no, let us wait until January. Now, January comes. Guys will say, we boozed. Around
December,
Christmas.
yeah.
We
it was a
depleted
rough
our
year.
money. Yeah, so it is good that we let us head the problems on.
Head on.
The schools must be opened.
Okay.
Thank
you,
you.
Zachary.
Thank you, Zachary.
Asante sana. 0719-012-600. Let's take a quick break, take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we take more of your calls. 0719-012-600. Are you, as a parent, prepared financially for schools to reopen this year?
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Okay, now we're just dealing with the remnants of traffic this morning. It's not too bad now. Everybody should have reached where they're going now, Abby. I think so. So, we'll see what it looks like later on in the day. But for now, Easy Street is where you are. Cruising. Is there a song like that? Cruising on Easy Street. Abby? City will sing it for us tomorrow. Okay. Spice of MKE. Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
20 minutes to 10. Let's go straight back to the phone lines. I've got many on the line. Let's start with Steve in Kisumu. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
I'm quite well.
Prepared financially for schools reopening, yes or no?
No, and I want to contribute as a teacher. So I wanted to say first, I had the CEO of the Private Schools Association talking about preparedness, like it's about hand washing and the rest, and not mentioning about the infrastructure. Yeah, because there's the issue about the social distancing, and there is nothing that has been added. No more classes. They are busy adding desks, like they were told that there was a crisis of desks. So I think I don't know what has happened. Just a while ago we had like the NAT SG talking and saying that the schools had to be safe for both teachers and students. Yesterday he was like very happy, saying that everyone has to go back to school, and that safety is yet to be assured. Yeah, so personally I believe there is something very wrong with our government. There's a problem.
There's a problem.
Yeah, because in terms of curriculum implementation, while the students have stayed home like for 6 months, you don't expect that continuity. You don't expect like a Form 1 who was just being introduced and learned for like around 8 weeks. After 6 months, you go like continuing. And from what I saw from the proposed like the term date, they are giving like 2 weeks break. And you can remember some while ago they said that the breaks were very, very essential and we had to have a minimum of 3 weeks. Now it is shortened to 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, Steve.
I believe, just one other thing. Yeah, our program has been synced in such a way that most of us know that we have our long breaks in December. And I want to believe that if our kids are going to be in school in December, then even the tourism and the rest, the holidays are going to be affected some way, indirectly or directly.
Yeah, it has an impact on other sectors of the economy. True.
Yeah, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Asante, Steve. Vincent in Donholm, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Eric?
Very well, thank you.
How is Muga and Ndu?
Fine, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, now, for me, I'm ready, but then I feel the government is not ready. A few days ago, I was listening to BBC when the Nigeria, I think it was Nigeria, when they reopened the schools. Now there's a parent who was being interviewed, and the child about how the school was on the first day of reopening after all those months of closure. Then about the physical distancing, the child was asked about the physical distancing, about the measures that were put in place, hand washing and the rest. Now, if I compare that to Kenya, it won't be possible about the physical distancing, considering the population of the learners in schools and the infrastructure that they have to use. Then the other thing, on what the previous caller just said, that continuity, I think the 2020 should just be done away with, and then things begin in 2021.
We begin everything afresh from next year.
Afresh in 2021, because to me, the citizens are prepared, most of them, quite a good number, but then the government is not prepared.
Okay.
In terms of infrastructure, because there are still institutions where students learn under the trees. Yeah.
Asante sana, Vincent. Have a good day.
Thank you. Good day too.
Mohamed in Mwakijembe, Kinango, Kwale. Hujambo?
Sijambo. Waungwana, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, kaka.
I wanted to contribute towards Shahbal's conversation. If I'm allowed, I will continue. If I'm time bad, I will just wish you good and blessed day.
Sema jambo moja alafu tuendelee.
Kuhusu Shahbal lakini.
Tafadhali, endelea.
Mimi mwanzo nashukuru, hiyo project is very noble 1000%, and in fact it is the way forward. But ya mzee nani City kila unajua bat anavyoitumia nimeipenda mimi. Hiyo bat ya City Morgan. But unajua Mombasa kuna estate nyingi za kizamani. There are estates which are totally condemned and nini haikaliki. In fact, there are no human beings habitating in those estates. In fact, even the bats wouldn't like to habitate there. Why didn't they start with that?
Kama gani kaka?
And kuna moja pale Shimanzi, kama unaenda kwa Kibarani on your left hand side. Kama waijua bwana mwalimu.
Na ukiwa waelekea airport ama ukiwa waelekea port sasa?
Airport. Waelekea airport, tuko hapa junction ya Shimanzi. Kama kuna ile barabara inakupeleka Shimanzi hapo hiyo junction. Kuna estate hapo zimeoza majumba, hakuna watu wanaishi. It's totally condemned. Hata bats don't wish to habitate there.
So there must be a reason why then first of all they are not even inhabited, and then must be a reason why they are not even in this program. Maybe tutafind out alafu tukwambie.
I think that we should ask somebody from the county of Mombasa to explain to us why it is. Yes.
So tutauliza alafu tutakwambia Mohamed.
Mohamed bado huko?
Hello.
Yes, endelea tafadhali.
This is Roderick.
Oh, Roderick.
Roderick is now on the line. Good morning, Roderick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. I would like to talk about this school issue.
Are you ready to reopen?
I think there is a cartel that is pushing an agenda here. I don't know why we are hurrying opening schools. And if you see the cases, how they are going out of control in Europe right now, and we have flights that are coming in inside the country from Europe, especially for these four countries, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt. Those are the gateways of Africa. These cases will go up. Parents would have paid fees, and we close by the end of October. October, even the end of October, we have already closed, and they've already paid fees. There's a cartel that is pushing an agenda here. I don't know what's the rush. Actually, what they should have done is just let the class 8 and maybe the Form 4 and the university guys who are doing their final exams to do the exams. Then we'll go back next year.
Yep.
Yeah? Because when these things start going up, you guys will be convinced, oh, now you see, you have paid the fees, but sasa itabidi tufunge, This Kenya, there's something. There's a cartel pushing an agenda here.
There's always a possibility.
There's always a possibility in Kenya if they can steal free things. Why don't they? These things that are genuine.
Thank you, Roderick.
Yeah.
Asante. I think this comment is also what I'm seeing Omarion Kyla Jeff saying. This agenda is proposed by businessmen who don't really understand what is going on the ground. The gradual opening of schools should start next year after the opening of economy, that giving parents some financial preparedness. After all, they have not even put on measures required to hold out children in schools.
It's an extremely valid point.
How did we get here where everything you hear from the government you're already thinking
there's something wrong here?
It's the government who very slowly, methodically, and consistently ensured that we think this way. Because, yes.
And it's not fair weather thinking, it's actually compounded thinking. Every time something happens, it's pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And then it turns out to be that actually was the case. when you sniff out something and you say, okay, this is what we're being told, and then you come to find out that it was actually a smokescreen for something else. People just don't think about this thing. It's because they've seen it happen before.
The emotions you hear being expressed are as a result of expectations. It's like this time, there's hope. This is going to happen. And then it doesn't. And then it takes you back to other things that have happened. So you're right when you say it's compounded.
Yeah.
That really is the problem. It isn't as though, in my mind, people have given up on the government. They haven't.
There's still hope.
But they keep being disappointed.
Is it not this same? We're not even going far. Is it not this same COVID for which money was given and now it's being investigated as to where the COVID money went? Same COVID that you're now telling the same parents to take their children back to school. That is the one that removed them from school. Same COVID. What do you expect?
And yet even issues around COVID are uncertain. And when you're talking about preparedness, it's again just that. Talk about preparedness. Yes.
Talk.
It's all about merchants. So we just look at it as, the government is a vehicle for certain individuals to conduct business.
You see, you then begin to wonder why it is that with the matter that has actually been on our tongues, all of us, about the possibility of our parliament going home, have you had the citizenry complaining?
In fact, they think, when is it? Is it tomorrow?
This is unconstitutional, Maraga. So what is Maraga trying to do?
Nothing.
Have you heard the citizenry complaining?
No.
If you read social media, if you're in social media, are there citizens who are saying,
they shouldn't go home?
They should be given time.
The slant of the conversation on social media is, let them go home.
They should go home.
Yes.
After all.
How do you think they arrived there? A matter of this nature, had people felt the positive impact of our parliament, for instance, all right? They would have said, no, wait. They would even tell you there's this bill and the other one which we need. So
just
we
hold
can't,
on.
yes. And even then, why? It's not all of them. You'd have had that sort of discussion. This one, it's like, waende.
And that's consensus across
We'll deal with everything else after
later.
that.
Yeah, but for now, thank you very much for this opportunity. Waende. When you get to that situation, and when I look at the response, it's clear they don't get it. Because they are still caught up in some warp or the other, and they're still responding to this matter the way they respond to everything else.
I think it's like the politicians are used to us. They know that this is what we're going to think about it. Then they'll come to us, they'll deal with us, those of us who...
As you saying, wametuzoea.
Wametuzoea. Yeah, I mean, that's why they're like, tunaenda wapi?
Ama mtatupeleka wapi?
Mtadu. So, yeah.
Actually, now the do here...
So now, people who are saying that it's a cartel or they're businessmen or there's an agenda, they're justified in that thinking, if you ask me. Quite justified in that thinking because you've not shown them anything else. You've not shown them anything else.
But it's very unfortunate that as a country we get to that point. This is not just news that has been announced by the government, but this is something that has happened globally. The body that is in charge of World Health actually says this exists. We declare this a pandemic. That means that all countries must now prepare. When the country called Kenya says, we are now putting these measures in place.
Yes, now it's the same country where they stole this. It's the same country where they stole the money that was supposed to use to treat the COVID in the first place. What do you
Eric,
expect?
if money and it's in the billions...
You believe that there's COVID in China. You believe that there's COVID.
Yes,
it has gone to Italy. It has gone to Spain. It has gone... When you're told it has come to Kenya...
You say somebody's trying to steal money. But then what happened a few months later? There's an inquiry now into money that was supposedly stolen because of COVID. What do you expect people to think?
And look at the mention of names in these matters, okay? You are even being told, if I may quote one Mheshimiwa Mtula Kilonzo Jr., that part of the problem we have, the impunity, you think about some of the people whom we work with in these institutions also are part and parcel of these groups of people.
They have vested interests.
Yes, exactly. So where exactly do you expect this thing to move? Now, this is in the public domain and people know this. If you want to understand this, Eric, people have taken the matters into their own hands in this country. And you know what is translating into? You go around, no one wears masks. And those who wear are few. People are going about the business as they did even before COVID. And yet COVID is real. COVID is harmful. If not attended to, it kills. And what people were being asked was just avoid getting COVID. Just, that's it. Don't get it.
Don't get it. Because you're on your own.
Now they're on their own.
Yes.
And they're taking matters in their hands because they're on their own.
Yeah. The money they said that was going to come and use to help, they ate it. So, I mean,
There is no money.
You're given donations by Jack Ma, by other governments, by other organizations. Disappear.
Out window.
Producer John is telling me about how the new phrase in the country is, when magicians are coming and they want to perform a magic. They tell you, abracadabra, 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 Jack Ma. And it disappears.
Meaning you can see it, see it, don't see it.
Pumba na kufumbua.
Yeah.
Jack Ma.
That one.
That's what I say. They jackmad it.
That I think they definitely have jackmad it. Meaning there is nothing sacred.
I'm telling you.
There's nothing they won't do. Nothing.
So when you have people saying things like this, when Roderick says there's something going on here, even this one, now they want schools to open by fire, by force, something must happen, then do you blame individuals? There's something.
There's some money that's coming in.
Roderick's perspective is shared by very many
Kenyans.
Very many.
I mean, many have called this morning and have said the same thing. We are seeing, even on social media, Omarin is saying the same thing.
Yes.
There's a business agenda being driven here by people who want to benefit from schools reopening. When schools are closed, that tap is closed.
Yep.
And
if you open schools, then you open that tap.
And even when a question is raised, it is raised with the view that something negative, something nefarious, something untoward is happening here. It's never, we don't understand it. No, The certainty is, okay, kuna ukora.
Tunachezwa.
Yeah,
Hapa tunachezwa. So I was just wondering, so how are you going to be played this time? And unfortunately now, this time, it's not just money that is coming from one organization into government coffers and then it disappears even before it comes to us. It's actually coming from your pocket. You have to pay the school fees. You have to take your child to school, and then this scheme will be implemented, executed.
Yes. And if you go a little further back in history, you'll understand that the one thing that the government does very well is increase taxes.
Nicely.
Yeah, the understanding of this is that services should also be increased. Ours, in this lovely country of Kenya,
decreased services.
It is diminished services. Yes.
Coming to the top of the hour, City Today's Proverb. Now this one you need to explain nicely.
The day a mosquito lands on your testicles is the day you will know there is a better way of resolving issues without violence. I think, why don't I there are many ways of explaining it, but let me explain it with reference to what we've been discussing regarding this advice that our CJ gave the president. Parliament has been acting in a manner that Parliament, both houses, that suits them. It didn't occur to them that a time will come when these very, very actions will come back to bite them. That even the pronouncements they've made, and that they keep making, completely neglecting what it is that the Mwananchi needs and what they were there for. So, right now, the mosquito of reality called Go Home has landed. Now,
they strike it with the hammer.
They are beginning to realize,
light a fire.
Can we think broadly about how best we can solve this particular problem of the mosquito? And this one, the mosquito has even bitten them because they're seeing the reality. Because you're out of a job, you're out of all the benefits that go with the job. All. As for the issue of employment, other MPs will come in and people will still get employed.
Don't worry, other people will get those seats.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on Spice FM, and also on KTN Home from 7 to 9, but also online throughout the day. Spice FM KE on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Until tomorrow, Siti Muga Wamashati, Nduoko, and Eric Latin say goodbye. It's 10 o'clock.
Goodbye.